Chapter 859. After Li Yundong said this, he nodded slightly to Zi Yuan, who was beside him. Asterisk bubble. Book. Asterisk. Zi Yuan looked at him with some confusion. She didn't understand why Li Yundong was still thinking of, if you want to do a good job, you must first sharpen your tools at such a critical time. However, when she saw Li Yundong take out the glazed mirror and the purple gold luo yu plate, she immediately cried out. Her expression was absent-minded, and her eyes flickered. Guan Hongling, who was standing to one side, looked even more excited and gave Zhou Ping a provocative look. In the past, she had suffered enough from Zhou Ping's sarcasm and supercilious eyes. Previously, at the inauguration ceremony, the Xueqi school had used these two damaged powerful magical weapons to criticize them, which had almost caused her and her Xueqi to be severely punished. Now, if these two powerful magical weapons were repaired, they would see what else they would say. When Zhang Tianhe and Zhou Ping saw Li Yundong take out these two powerful magical weapons, they couldn't help but be stunned. Zhou Ping's eyes flickered. She remembered that Yu Yutian had run to the Xueqi school to cry out his grievances and that Li Yundong could repair powerful magical weapons at this time. She suddenly looked like she wanted to say something, but she was deterred by Li Yundong's temperament and swallowed her words. Zhang Tianhe seemed to have not thought of the connection between these two things. He was pleasantly surprised and said, Zhenren Li can mend the sky? That's an eye-opener. Most cultivators knew how to use powerful magical weapons, but only a few people knew how to repair them. It could be said to be an extremely secretive divine skill in the cultivation world. In the past, the Penglai sect had been punished because of this divine skill. It could be said that an ordinary man was innocent, but he would get into trouble because of his wealth. Now that Li Yundong was using this divine skill in front of them, it was unknown whether he was secretly testing them or if he was fearless. Li Yundong looked at the two of them deeply, then smiled at Su Chan, Zi Yuan, and the others, indicating that they didn't have to worry. Then, he walked to the balcony and handed the purple gold luo yu plate to Zi Yuan, who was beside him. He held the glazed mirror with both hands, went out of his body, and flew toward the thunderclouds. The energy of Li Yundong's yang spirit at this time was beyond the imagination of ordinary people. As soon as he flew into the thunderclouds, it immediately caused the thunder to rumble again, and the thunderclouds churned violently. Li Yundong, who had gone through the 9 stages of thunder retribution, was no longer afraid of any heavenly thunder except the 9 heavenly night thunder. Seeing the dense heavenly thunder above his head coming toward him, he smiled slightly and held up the glass mirror, making it float in front of him. Almost there, his hands were tied inside his body, his index fingers were placed together, his wrists were 2 to 3 inches apart, and his thumbs were bent and crossed 3 times. In the midst of the thunderclouds he chanted the mantra, Pao Mo, Pa Si Fu Di, Pei Sha Zi Yi, Yu Lu, Ba Yi Yi, Bo Luo Pa, Luo Ta Bo Duo Yi, Luo Ho Di, Sanya San Wu Tua Yi, Bo Yu Yi Duo, Pai Sha Er Yi, Pei Sha Er Yi, Pei Sha Zi Yi, Sanamo Nu Bo Di, Sa Fu He. This was the Medicine Buddha Foundation seal. The Medicine Buddha Foundation seal was one of the great gods and Buddhas in the world who could eliminate disasters, save the dying and heal the wounded, and turn misfortune into blessing. He was also one of the gods and Buddhas with a very high status, only below Vairocana and Amitabha Buddha. In Li Yundong's handprint, the 4 fingers on the left were the 4 elements of all living beings, namely, the 4 elements of earth, water, wind, and fire. The 4 fingers on the right were the 4 elements of the Buddha realm, namely, color, law, body, and mind. Buddhism believed that all the diseases in the world originated from the disharmony of the 4 elements of the secular world. So the 4 elements of the Buddha realm were used to harmonize with the 4 elements of the world of all living beings. In the Mahamudra, the 2 thumbs were bent back and forth, summoning the 3 diseases of the 4 elements of the secular world, the Buddha realm, and the Buddha realm into the medicine pot, becoming the 3 medicines of reason, wisdom, and religion. At the same time, the moon was bound in the hand, and the 2 thumbs were used to get rid of the 2 selves, so as to summon the meaning of the emptiness of man and law. After reading The Secret Method of Patching Heaven, Li Yundong realized that it was actually a wonderful technique of borrowing power from heaven and then using human power to repair powerful magical weapons. However, after learning it, Li Yundong found that the original secret method of patching heaven was relatively limited. It could either use the spirit treasures of heaven and earth, herbs and rare treasures to repair magic, or use the thunder method to repair magic. However, Li Yundong suddenly thought that since the Medicine Buddha Foundation could remove all the diseases in the world and repair the human body and Dharmakaya, Why couldn't it be used to repair powerful magical weapons? Although Buddhism and Taoism were two different schools, in the final analysis, they came from the same source. They were both seeking the true self and the true method. Their daros were different, but their principles were the same. Their skills were different, but their methods were the same. Li Yundong held the Baisajayaguru Tathagata's fundamental seal. The heavenly thunder struck him, but it couldn't hurt his thunder tribulation yang spirit at all. Every bolt of heavenly thunder that struck his yang spirit was like a huge wave hitting a rock, shattering with a loud bang. After each heavenly thunder was broken, there would be waves of blue light drifting around. These blue lights were the glimmer of life in the heavenly thunder. After they drifted around, they were quickly attracted by Li Yundong's Baisajayaguru Tathagata's fundamental seal and quickly rushed toward Li Yundong's Mahamudra. It was almost there. Li Yundong's hands quickly turned blue. Blue was the color of the sea, and at this time, it represented infinite vitality. He held the blue light in his hands and pressed it toward the sky-reaching glaze mirror in front of him. Suddenly, the blue light in the thundercloud shone brightly, and the sky-reaching glaze mirror trembled violently. This burst of blue light wrapped around the broken powerful magical weapon like flowing water, moistening the dry and cracked earth like a spring rain. At this time, Li Yundong took a closer look and saw that as the blue light flowed, the cracks all over the sky-reaching glaze mirror were slowly infiltrated by the blue light and disappeared little by little. When the blue light completely disappeared, the sky-reaching glaze mirror emitted a faint blue fluorescent light. There was no longer any crack, and it was as good as before. He felt relieved and knew that his attempt had succeeded. Then he took the sky-reaching glaze mirror home. As soon as Li Yundong appeared, he saw Su Chan, Zi Yuan, Zhou Qin, and the others surrounding him nervously. They looked at the sky-reaching glaze mirror in his hand. Li Yundong smiled at Zi Yuan and said, "Fortunately, I didn't disappoint you." Zi Yuan saw the fluorescent light flowing on the sky-reaching glaze mirror. The spiritual energy contained in it seemed to be far stronger than before. The powerful magical weapon of her sect had not been destroyed in her hands. For a moment, she was so excited that she brushed the mirror with her hand and remained silent. She didn't even notice that Li Yundong was talking to her. After a long time, she raised her head, tears in her eyes. She stared at Li Yundong blankly, unable to speak for a while. Li Yundong chuckled at her and said, "You don't have to thank me. Just give me the purple gold luo jade plate. If it hadn't been for this powerful magical weapon, I would have died under the divine tribulation." Zi Yuan quickly turned her body sideways and wiped the corner of her eye with the back of her hand. When she turned around again, she was already smiling and calm. She smiled and handed over the purple gold jade plate. Li Yundong did the same thing and repaired the magical weapon to its original state. Zhang Tianhe, who was watching from the side, secretly sighed and exclaimed that it was amazing. Zhou Ping, on the other hand, was both respectful and fearful. She thought to herself, Li Yundong has helped Zi Yuan repair these two powerful magical weapons of the sect. I'm afraid that he won't be able to do anything to her at the next inauguration ceremony. Zhou Ping didn't realize that because she had also observed that Zhang Tianhe's love for Zi Yuan had weakened, her hostility towards Zi Yuan had also decreased a lot. If it had been in normal times, she might have cursed Zi Yuan in her heart. After Li Yundong had repaired the sky-reaching glaze mirror and the purple gold jade plate, he turned to Su Chan and said, "Chaner, wait for me at home. I'll go and meet the mystical silver fox. I'll be back soon." Su Chan suddenly became very nervous. She quickly shook her head and said, "No, I have to go with you." Li Yundong knew that although the little girl's cultivation had increased greatly, he still refused to let her go with him. He shook his head and said, "No, the identity of the mystical silver fox is sensitive. You are a member of the Fox Zen School and my girlfriend. Ao Wushuang is also your master. You should avoid arousing suspicion." Su Chan said angrily, "What's the reason?" "That's why I have to go. If I don't go, wouldn't it be even more obvious?" At this time, Zhou Qi knew that if Li Yundong didn't let Su Chan go, she would have no hope. She had cultivated so hard just to hide aside when there was trouble and danger? An ordinary woman might like to watch her beloved man fight for her, but Zhou Qi was not such a woman. She was strong and competitive. She liked to fight on the front line with her beloved man. When necessary, she would use her body to cover him and die for him. In this way, he would remember her for the rest of his life. Seeing that Li Yundong didn't even let Su Chan go, Xueqi immediately tried to persuade him. Suchan is right. Master, you should let her go. Li Yundong turned his face and said with a faint smile, I should let you go, right? Xueqi's careful thoughts were exposed, but she didn't blush at all. She said righteously, if the master is in trouble, the disciple should bear the burden. Isn't this what I should do? Master, I know you are worried about my safety, but is it really safe to hide behind you for the rest of my life? Or do you think I'm still a burden now? These words were a little serious. Li Yundong knew that if he didn't let Xueqi go, she might blame him for the rest of her life in the future. Moreover, her Taoist heart would also be damaged because of this matter. Li Yundong sighed helplessly and nodded gently to Xueqi, but then he added, Don't do stupid things, do you hear me? Xueqi saw that Li Yundong was staring at her as if he could see through her heart. Her heart trembled and she nodded heavily. At this time, Lin Miao, who had blonde hair and blue eyes, looked at Li Yundong and opened her mouth, as if she wanted to go with him. However, Li Yundong said to her without hesitation, Lin Miao, don't say it. You haven't even passed the Xueqi phase. If you go, you will die. Not only will you not be able to help, but you will also be a burden. Su Chan, Xueqi, and Zi Yuan can go, but you can't go. The big and small foxes of the Fox Zen school all looked at Li Yundong eagerly, as if waiting for him to take them to Japan to broaden their horizons and see what the strongest fox spirit of all time looked like. But hearing Li Yundong's words, they all hung their heads dejectedly. Chao Yi and Lu Yuehong looked at each other, then quickly comforted the disappointed little foxes. After Li Yundong had discussed everything, he, Su Chan, Zi Yuan, and Xueqi all took their powerful magical weapons and prepared to go to Su Yi. At this time, Zhang Tianhe, who was standing to one side, said, Zhenren Li, if you don't mind, I will follow your lead and go with you. Although my cultivation is not very good, I can wave the flag and shout for support. Li Yundong quickly tried to persuade him. Zhenren Zhang, you are the future leader of the Zhengyi school. How can you take the risk yourself? Zhang Tianhe smiled and said, If even you lose, it is very likely that there will be no Zhengyi school in the future. When the nest is overturned, how can there be an intact egg? I believe that you know this truth, Zhenren Li. Li Yundong thought for a moment, nodded, and no longer stopped Zhang Tianhe. He looked in the direction of Su Yi and sighed slightly. I don't know what's going on there now. If we go now, is it too late? Chapter 860. Just before Zhang Tianhe and Zhou Ping went to Tiannan City, in the distant Nasui, there was a thunderstorm. You almost there. When cultivators transcended the thunder tribulation, although the power of the ninth heaven divine thunder was just as great, the heavenly thunder was full of vitality. Although it was awe-inspiring and frightening, it was not enough to make people think of life and death. However, when the ninth heaven divine night thunder fell, everyone felt as if they were in the wilderness of hell in an instant. The air around them became scorching hot, without a trace of vitality, which made people desperate. The light, which was like the polar day, was so dazzling that many cultivators with lower cultivation even covered their eyes and wailed in pain. Some cultivators with profound cultivation avoided the extreme light at the first time. Then they opened their eyes, turned their heads, and boldly looked at the field. At this time, the heavenly thunder gradually disappeared. It turned out that the place where the mystical silver fox and Wang Yuanshan were located was empty. The ground under their feet had been struck by the heavenly thunder, and there was a huge round pit. There was smoke in it, and black stones and scorched earth were everywhere. There was no vitality at all. It seemed that both of them had been turned into powder by the heavenly thunder together. Could it be that the mystical silver fox is really dead this time? Almost everyone in the cultivation world of China who saw the situation on the field couldn't help but have a thought in their minds. Because of Zhou Chang's previous example, no one dared to be careless. Otherwise, before they had time to be happy for a long time, they would be caught off guard by the mystical silver fox. That would be too much joy before sorrow came to them. For a while, the cultivators on both sides of the mountain range began to search around nervously. The cultivators of the Chinese cultivation world released their powerful magical weapons, while the cultivators of the Japanese cultivation world took out their ghosts and spirits, looking for the aura of the mystical silver fox from afar. After searching for a long time, they finally confirmed that there was no trace of the mystical silver fox. No one knew who was the first to cheer in the Japanese cultivation sections. Then, there was an earth-shaking cheer on the top of the mountain like a tsunami. Visi Shengguang, such a cynical man, couldn't help but put his palms together, close his eyes, and say to the sky with a sigh, "Amaterasu God, thank you." Fortunately, our Japanese cultivation world shouldn't have suffered this calamity. Although Ayase Izumo had been injured by the mystical silver fox before, she had a deep foundation, and her injury was not very serious. She also breathed a sigh of relief, and a faint smile appeared on her usually unsmiling face. She said with fear, "What a terrible opponent." Fortunately, it was a little late. Although the Chinese cultivation world on the opposite side saw that the mystical silver fox had disappeared without a trace, they could not be happy in any case. In this battle, although many people in the Japanese cultivation world had died, there were 200 million believers in Japan. Such a huge foundation was enough to support them to recover their vitality in a very short time. But what kind of people had died in the Chinese cultivation world? Zhou Chong was a veteran of the Chuanjin Dragon sect, one of the top sects in the Chinese cultivation world. He was a rare lightning tribulation expert in the world. Wang Yuanshan, the #1 expert of the Chinese cultivation world, represented the pinnacle of individual cultivation in the Chinese cultivation world. Both of those rare experts had perished in battle. For the Chinese cultivation world, which was already in the degenerate age, it was like adding hail to snow. Although there were different sects in the past, many cultivators still held a glimmer of hope in their hearts. They hoped that Wang Yuanshan was not dead, especially Ding Nan. She didn't want Zhou Chong to die because of her, and then Wang Yuanshan to die in battle. It could be said that the collapse of the two highest peaks in the Chinese cultivation world had something to do with her. If someone talked about this matter in the future, it would be unimaginable. But no matter how hard Ding Nan and the cultivators of various sects searched, they could not find any trace of Wang Yuanshan, as if he had never appeared in this place. Ding Nan searched for a long time and finally gave up. She landed on the top of the mountain. Her expression changed, and her eyes flickered. No one knew what she was thinking. The cultivators of all sects in China still subconsciously isolated her. Among them, Mao Yichang, who had been sent flying by the mystical silver fox, also came to her senses at this time. Although she had a lot of thoughts about Ding Nan, it was not convenient for her to cause trouble at this time. At this time, she was extremely vile. Thinking of her performance in front of everyone before, she was both angry and upset. Especially at this time, when she heard a burst of laughter coming from the opposite mountain, she was so angry that she gritted her teeth and couldn't help cursing. These little devils are so heartless. Even Senior Zhou and Wang Dezhenren are dead. How can they still laugh? As soon as she said this, some cultivators echoed with righteous indignation, "That's right. These little devils are evil. They just killed the mystical silver fox and forgot about us." For a moment, the crowd on the top of the mountain was boiling with emotions. Du Fei, who was standing to one side, saw that something was wrong. Although he didn't like these Japanese people very much, he was experienced and prudent after all. He knew that he couldn't come at this time. Although the Japanese cultivation world had suffered heavy casualties, it would be a big mistake if he thought that these people could take advantage of the situation and kill them all. The reason why the Japanese cultivation world used to be like a soft persimmon in front of the mystical silver fox was that she could pinch them however she wanted. It was not because they were weak, but because the mystical silver fox was always stronger than all of them. This distance was a natural chasm for cultivators, and they could never cross it. If it weren't for Zhou Chong and his immortal trapping sword on their side, or if it weren't for Wang Yuanshan, if they fought against the mystical silver fox, their fate would be worse than that of the Japanese cultivation world. Du Fei was well aware of this. He was afraid that these people would get hot-headed and rush over recklessly. That would be a great trouble. Although the Japanese had forgotten to come and thank them for their help after the battle, they still owed them a favor. As the saying goes, the cultivation world of China and Japan is separated by a strip of water. Mountains don't move. Water doesn't move. People don't move. One day, they will meet again. Maybe this favor will come in handy when the time comes. In this world, it was easy to pay off a debt of money, but difficult to pay off a debt of love. This great favor of coming from thousands of miles away to help would probably be a headache for the Japanese cultivation world in the future. But if they were impulsive at this time, not only would this great favor be lost, but the other party might even bite back and take advantage of the situation. That would be a great disaster. Du Fei hastily advised from the side. "Fellow Taoists, listen to me. It's really not the time to care about this. After all, the Japanese have also suffered heavy casualties. At this time, the enemy has died, which is understandable. At present, we are still in their territory, and Senior Zhou and Zhenren Wang have passed away. Everyone, don't be impulsive. As the saying goes, impulsiveness is the devil. Du Fei's words were like a basin of cold water poured over their heads. Everyone thought about it and was extremely depressed. If Senior Zhou and Zhenren Wang were still here, they would immediately fight with these little Japanese and kill them. Let's see if they dare to burn the bridge after crossing the river. The cultivators of all sects in the Chinese cultivation world all felt that the Chinese cultivation world had suffered a great loss this time. They felt extremely uncomfortable, so they didn't like the Japanese people on the opposite side. Especially when they heard the laughter on the opposite side of the mountain, it was even more ear-piercing. However, there was not only laughter in the Japanese cultivation world. Because the three giants of the Japanese Buddhist world had been forming the magic formation, it could be said that they had relied on the power of the magic formation to resist the attacks of most of the mystical silver foxes. Therefore, the Pure Land True sect, the Tiantai sect, and the Zhenyan Tantrism had suffered extremely serious losses. After the battle, the monks looked around and saw that many of their friends were already covered in blood and lying on the ground, never to wake up again. Even though they were monks who could see through the secular world and everything was empty, they couldn't help but feel sad. Many of them burst into tears. The great monk of the Zhenyan Tantrism, Kaisai Hikaryuni, also had a face full of emotion. His eyes were filled with the palpitations of surviving a disaster. He put his palms together and said in a deep voice, "Amitabha. Everyone, they just went to the Western Paradise under the guidance of the Buddha. The dead have passed away. This is a good thing. It is a release from the secular world. We should recite the Reincarnation Sutra for them and celebrate them." At this time, the monks around, regardless of their sex, all put their palms together and praised in unison, "The great monk is right. They went to the Western Paradise under the guidance of the Buddha. We should be happy." After that, everyone began to recite the reincarnation mantra loudly. Although it was the monks of the Pure Land True sect who recited the reincarnation mantra the most, it was not only the monks of the Pure Land True sect who recited the reincarnation mantra. The monks of the Tiantai sect and the Zhenyan Tantrism were also familiar with the reincarnation mantra. At once, they recited the reincarnation mantra together, "Namo Amitabha Night, Dota Gata Night, Dota Yesha, Amitabha Dota Papai." For a time, there was a burst of chanting on the top of the mountain, and the Dharma was solemn. But as soon as they finished reciting the sutra, they heard a buzzing voice suddenly coming from the sky. The voice belonged to a woman, cold and ferocious. "They have indeed gone to the Western Paradise. Stop reciting the sutra and go to the Western Paradise with them." This sentence was really terrible to the extreme. In an instant, the whole world seemed to be quiet. On the mountains on both sides of the cultivation world in the middle sun, the noise, laughter, crying, and chanting disappeared in an instant. Everyone seemed to have become mute in an instant. The air between heaven and earth seemed to have been suddenly sucked dry, and there was no sound around. Dead silence, a bone-chilling dead silence. Mystical silver fox. She was not dead. Why did the mystical silver fox not die under such an amazing power of the nine heavens god Night Thunder? No one was in the mood to investigate this question. The cultivators of the two countries, who had been secretly estranged from each other before, forgot all the unhappiness in an instant. They all looked at the sky in fear and despair, as if they had seen their own death and the end of the world. "Amaterasu God. May your glory give me blessings and strength to face the coming death and fear." Even Yisi Shenguang, a strong-willed great cultivator, closed his eyes in despair at this time, and had no intention of resisting at all. At this time, many of the cultivators who had been laughing broke down in an instant, crying and shouting in fear. At this time, the faces of the monks of various Buddhist sects were full of despair. A solemn and stirring atmosphere enveloped the top of Su Ye's mountain. The atmosphere was so oppressive that it was suffocating. There were even some cultivators with poor willpower who, in this extreme fear, shouted and slapped their own foreheads with a backhand, smashing their own bodies and young spirits into pieces. Those cultivators who were not crazy looked at the sky in fear, and their hearts were filled with despair. The mystical silver fox didn't die. Is she really invincible? Who else in the world can deal with her? Is the end of the world really coming? Chapter 861. When the ninth heaven divine Night Thunder fell, even the mystical silver fox thought that she was going to die. But soon she found that the moment the heavenly thunder fell, It slowed down, and there was a gap in it. The mystical silver fox had been fighting and fighting all her life. She had fought countless times and had rich experience. She had been able to escape from countless pursuits and encirclement. She had relied on her ability to capture the secrets of heaven that ordinary people could not. At this moment, she immediately broke free from Wang Yuanshan's restraint. Her 7 fox tails gathered above her head and around her, tightly surrounding herself. Almost there. Because the magic circle of the Xueqi school was accidentally destroyed by Li Sen, the energy accumulated by the magic circle did not reach its peak at the last moment, and the power of the 9th heaven divine night thunder did not reach its maximum. It could not even be called the 9th heaven divine night thunder. There were many thunder methods in the world, but only the 9th heaven divine night thunder could kill the mystical silver fox. As soon as the power of the thunder method was weakened, it was immediately absorbed by the 7 indestructible fox tails of the mystical silver fox and weakened its power. When it was passed to the mystical silver fox, its power was not even enough to kill her. However, although the power of the heavenly thunder was reduced, it was still the power of heaven after all. The mystical silver fox was seriously injured after taking the blow. She immediately hid under the ground and secretly adjusted her breath. The cultivators of the 2 sects of China and Japan had searched almost all the places within a radius of more than 10 miles from Xueqi, but no one had thought of going deep underground to look for the trace of the mystical silver fox. In the past, the mystical silver fox had read the classics of Buddhism and Taoism and had seen a lot. Naturally, she knew that the 9th heaven divine night thunder could not be activated by 1 or 2 cultivators with their own spiritual energy cultivation. It must be a terrifying thunder that could only be driven by a large magic circle. Obviously, Xueqi did not have such a magic circle. Otherwise, she could feel the huge spiritual chi and spiritual energy of the magic circle at the first time, and she would definitely destroy the magic circle at the first time. In the magic circle that the mystical silver fox knew, the 9th heaven divine night thunder in front of her was obviously used as bait by Wang Yuanshan, and then moved through the absolute love extinguishing formation. However, no matter how smart the mystical silver fox was, she could never imagine why this fatal blow did not kill her. Moreover, the power of the heavenly thunder had decreased sharply at the last moment, which allowed her to escape. The mystical silver fox survived a great disaster. She was extremely shocked and also a little frightened. At this time, it was the most vulnerable time for the mystical silver fox. She withstood the heavenly thunder, and her chi and blood were fluctuating. She could hardly mobilize her Xueqi. However, after she took a breather under the 9th earth for a while, she was able to move her Xueqi. However, she seemed to be a little vigilant. The mystical silver fox had a lingering fear in her heart for Wang Yuanshan's absolute determination and fatal blow. Heaven Lightning Fox's Dragon Wang. Star to Silva. After the divine night god, she fell, and the god silver foxes she fell. After Heaven Divine Silver Dragon, she fell. God Silver Fox's mountain was. After confirming that there were no other magic circles and that the 9 heaven divine night thunder would not fall again, the mystical silver fox showed her true body again. This time, when she showed her true body, she immediately defeated the resistance of the cultivators of China and Japan. After losing Zhou Chong and Wang Yuanshan, they all knew that there was no one in front of them who could resist the angry revenge of the mystical silver fox. When Ise Shinguang heard the voice of the mystical silver fox, he couldn't help but pray to Amaterasu in despair. Then he knew that he would die. He let out a long sigh and said in a low voice, "If there is no disease for 7 years, there is no need to suffer for 3 years. If the cloud has no heart, it will be a poem. If the poem has no heart, it will not be bitter. When you are sleepy, you sleep during the day. When you wake up at night. If you don't have the desire to climb the 9 lotus platform, you won't have the sin of falling into 80,000 hell. If you live to the fullest, death is just a retirement." This was the masterpiece Xueqi Temple, handed down from generation to generation by Maeda Keiji, the most legendary general in the world during the Warring States period in Japan. Although the words were not gorgeous and the antithesis was questionable, the artistic conception in the poem was commendable. The reason why Ise Shinguang had a one-man style was that he was a die-hard fan of Maeda Keiji. During the Warring States period, Maeda Keiji was known as the first romantic in the Warring States period and the unparalleled kabuki. Although he was a famous general, his personal style had nothing to do with that of a famous general. The Japanese were low-key and modest. They were cautious in their words and deeds. However, Maeda Keiji had learned from countless famous teachers. He boasted that he was good at dancing, music, tea ceremony, and all kinds of martial arts. The most glorious thing he had done in his life was to lead only 7 people to fight. In the middle of the night, he killed his way into the main formation of the first general, Mogami Yoshimitsu, and almost killed himself. Then he retreated overnight. After that battle, he immediately called himself the first famous general in the world, and first gun in the world. Maeda Keiji would often be naked in the winter, and would wear cotton clothes in the summer. When the 2 armies were at war, he would sing and dance in front of the formation. He would even strip naked. Sometimes, when he was excited, he would boast to anyone he met that his little brother was as thick as a child's arm, and how amazing his martial arts were. Such a character could be said to be an absolute anomaly among the Japanese. He was extremely accomplished in singing, dancing, and poetry. Even hundreds of years later in the modern society, there were still many people who deeply loved his poems and fantasies. The author of Fist of the North Star, Tetsuo Hara, used his deeds to create the famous manga Hwa no Keiji, which was widely read in Japan at that time. Therefore, when Ise Shinguang wrote this poem, almost all the Japanese here knew the origin of this poem. Usually, when they read Maeda Keiji's poems and life stories, they did not feel particularly emotional. However, at that moment, with an invincible enemy in front of them and death at hand, all of them suddenly seemed to understand the artistic conception in Maeda Keiji's poem. For a moment, the surrounding Japanese cultivators felt the same way. Many of them cried in despair and began to recite, "If you live to the fullest, death is just a retirement." Many cultivators even took off their clothes like crazy and pointed their little brother at the sky. They stomped their feet and cursed, as if they were tired of living. "Kill me if you have the guts, and I'll reincarnate as soon as possible." Although the cultivators of the Chinese sects on the other side were also terrified and desperate, they were stunned when they saw that the Japanese were singing and dancing. Some of them were even naked. They really couldn't figure out how this group of Japanese, who were usually cautious and even cautious with their words, could do such a crazy thing at this moment. When the mystical silver fox saw their ugly behavior in the sky, she sneered in her heart. Finally, she was sure that these guys had no heart to resist. At this time, her young spirit flashed and returned to her body, which was hidden under the 9th earth. When she appeared again, she was already in the air between the 2 mountains. Suddenly, the figure of the mystical silver fox appeared. The 7 dancing golden foxtails were really like the rolling flames of hell, which made people's hearts tremble with fear. Many Japanese cultivators, who had been crazy before, were stunned at this time. They were frightened by the momentum of the mystical silver fox, and they were all stunned on the spot. At this time, on the top of the mountain of the Chinese cultivation sects, the cultivators of all sects were beating the drums of retreat without exception. They were just here to help out and participate in the battle. There was no need for them to die here with the Japanese. Du Fei of the Chuanjian Dragon sect said in a deep voice, "Everyone, we can't all die here. Let's all scatter and escape. No matter how powerful the mystical silver fox is, she can't leave us all here." Hearing this, everyone said, "Yes, we don't have to stay here and die with these Japanese." While they were talking, they suddenly heard the mystical silver fox shout, "You still want to escape? All of you go to hell." Everyone was shocked. They looked up at the mystical silver fox, only to see her 7 foxtails sweeping towards them in an instant. At this moment, the cultivators of all sects in the Chinese cultivation world on the top of the mountain were shocked and jumped up one after another. The 7 tails of the mystical silver fox suddenly spread out like a peacock's tail, spreading in all directions like a waterfall. Countless thin fox silk, like a spider web, quickly chased after them. Many cultivators who escaped slowly were immediately caught up by the fox silk and were instantly twisted into countless pieces. Ding Nan and Mao Yichong's cultivation was relatively high, and their reactions were also extremely fast. As soon as the mystical silver fox moved, they immediately escaped far away. But although their cultivation was high and their speed was fast, how could they be faster than the mystical silver fox? The 2 of them saw that the golden fox silk under their feet was like a maggot attached to a bone, following them like a shadow. Seeing that it was about to catch up with them, they felt a chill in their hearts and thought to themselves, "It seems that we can't escape this calamity today." The 2 of them looked at each other from afar. Just as they were about to close their eyes and wait for death, they suddenly heard a voice coming from the clouds. The voice was solemn, full of majesty and power. "Nan, Sanmanduo Luo Ji. Tough. For a moment, the two of them didn't understand what the voice was saying. They only saw a big golden handprint flying out of the thundercloud and blasting towards the mystical silver fox. The two of them didn't understand, but the cultivators of various sects of Buddhism felt as if a bolt of lightning had flashed in their minds. When the monks on the two mountains saw the Mahamudra, they put their palms together modestly. The two middle fingers were erected like a block, the left index finger was upright and shaking, and the right index finger was open, showing the shape of a lion. This was the lion speed seal, one of the 14 fundamental seals of the immovable Wisdom King, which symbolized the brave and fierce Bodhi heart. At this time, these monks, who had been in despair, suddenly became spirited, regardless of their countries, sects and sections. They said loudly in unison, "Those who see me will obtain the Bodhi heart. Those who hear my name will stop cultivating good. Those who hear my words will obtain great wisdom. Those who know my heart will become a Buddha." At this time, the cultivators of the Taoists and the Shinto sect also came to their senses. Although they did not cultivate Buddhism, they all knew that this sentence was the famous oath of the immovable Wisdom King. Living in the fire gives birth to samadhi, burning the internal and external obstacles, and destroying all the enemies of the devil army. The cultivators of various sects, who had been rescued from death, suddenly widened their eyes and looked at the clouds. They saw a young man sitting cross-legged in the rolling thundercloud high in the sky, motionless. It was the reincarnated Wisdom King, Li Yundong. Chapter 862. Li Yundong's speed was extremely fast. Before his body arrived, the young spirit had already arrived in an instant. As soon as he arrived, he saw the mystical silver fox start a massacre and chase after the cultivation world of the middle sun indiscriminately. Almost there without thinking, he immediately sent out a giant palm print. For the cultivators of Buddhism in China, this Mahamudra made them feel refreshed, as if they had come back to life. The mystical silver fox was even more shocked. No one was more familiar with this Mahamudra than she was. In the past, when she and the immovable Wisdom King fought fiercely, this Mahamudra Kung Fu had left a very deep impression on her. The mystical silver fox's foxtail, which had been chasing after everyone, immediately retracted and curled up into a ball-shaped barrier to protect herself. With a bang, the big handprint forcibly slapped her in the air and sent her flying more than 10 meters away. This time, the mystical silver fox could completely conclude that this must be the reincarnation of Wisdom King. There wouldn't be a second person in the world who could send him flying so far just by relying on the giant palm print. The two blood-red eyes of the mystical silver fox seemed to burn with a blazing flame. It was so angry that it almost turned into two burning fireballs. When enemies meet, their eyes turn red. Reincarnated Wisdom King, do you dare to show yourself? After the mystical silver fox stopped, its golden foxtail curled up. Half of it protected its body, and the other half jumped up and down, staring at the clouds covetously. At this time, Li Yundong had not yet reached Xueqi. Even though he had broken through the ninth thunder retribution, he still did not dare to be careless, because the opponent in front of him was the strongest cultivator in the Chinese cultivation world in 1,000 years. The cultivation world of China and Japan had joined hands to encircle her twice, but they had failed. Now the cultivation world of the two countries had joined hands for the first time, but they had still been defeated by her. Li Jiandong knew that no matter from which point of view, he could not lose. If he lost, the Chinese cultivation world would fall to the bottom, and Su Chan, Zi Yuan, and Zhou Qin would definitely suffer a misfortune. Chao Kefi's divine sense and memory would also be completely absorbed by the mystical silver fox. Therefore, Li Yundong was particularly cautious. He hid his young spirit body in the thunderclouds, only showing his figure faintly in the thunderclouds. He moved his position from time to time, so as to avoid any danger. You almost there, as the saying goes, what is false is true, and what is true is false. The unknown soldier Wang Yuanshan, who had appeared before, had given the mystical silver fox a huge surprise. A guy whom she had never heard of had almost died with her, which made the mystical silver fox particularly cautious. This guy called Wang Yuanshan almost caused him to fail miserably. How could this reincarnated Wisdom King, who had 1,000 years of enmity with him, be easy to provoke? Li Yundong did not dare to be careless, nor did the mystical silver fox. She stared at the sky, and her whole body began to bulge. She released it from afar, like a radar, constantly searching for Li Yundong's figure and aura. Once she locked Li Yundong's position, she would immediately launch a tentative attack. She wanted to see how powerful the wisdom king of this life was after 1,000 years. The mystical silver fox and Li Yundong, who had been enemies for 1,000 years, looked at each other nervously and vigilantly. No one dared to make a move rashly. At this time, on the top of the mountain where the Japanese cultivation world was located, the cultivators of all sects widened their eyes and looked at the clouds in the sky. Wang Yuanshan had shown them the demeanor of a great cultivator who was old and immortal. At this time, Li Yundong was too young. Even though they were far away, their sharp eyes could see Li Yundong's young face flashing in the clouds from time to time. But this time, no one dared to look down on him. This young man, who sat high in the clouds, once defeated Masako Tachibana in Mount Koya, and the other time, he defeated several masters in the Japanese cultivation world in a row in Mount Longhu. These two deeds of severely injuring the Japanese cultivation world made the Japanese cultivation world completely recognize his identity as the reincarnated Wisdom King. Many Japanese cultivators thought, only the reincarnated Wisdom King can be so strong. There is nothing to be ashamed of being defeated by such a strong man. Therefore, as soon as Li Yundong appeared, many cultivators of all sects shouted excitedly. Some of the more experienced and prudent ones couldn't help sighing involuntarily. Ah, is this the reincarnated Wisdom King? He's really majestic. As the saying goes, a person's reputation is like the shadow of a tree. Li Yundong's reputation was built up from fierce battles. Although there were many thrilling and fierce battles, he had never been defeated so far. He could be called an invincible golden body. In the Chinese cultivation world, people gave him the nickname Invincible Li. In the Japanese cultivation world, people gave him the elegant name Fighting Lord. The reason why Li Yundong was able to get such a title was that most of the masters he had defeated had been famous for a long time. They were by no means ordinary people. Because of this, although Li Yundong was young, as soon as he appeared, he immediately shocked everyone. Some older Japanese cultivators even called him Lord, and didn't dare to call him by his name. This was the logic of the Japanese. As long as one side was strong enough for them to look up to, they would be the most respectful group of people in the world. Ise Xinguang hadn't expected that Li Yundong would arrive at this time. Even though he thought that he was indifferent to everything and had seen through death, he couldn't help but be a little excited at this time. He said to Ise Chuyun, "The immovable Wisdom King is here. We are saved." Ise Izumo looked at the clouds in a daze. She said slowly, "Heavenly Lord Battler has become stronger again. It's really awe-inspiring." Ise Chuyun knew very well that the last time she had fought with Li Yundong, he had been seriously injured. If Li Yundong had been fully injured and they had fought, she was afraid that she would have lost even more miserably. Now, Li Yundong actually dared to sit at the top of the thunderclouds and ignore the heavenly thunder. Such boldness and demeanor were really awe-inspiring. Ise Xinguang said with emotion, "Chuyun, this battle in front of us is the Battle of Tianwang Mountain in the cultivation world. It's rare to see one in 900 years. No matter whether we win or lose, we are lucky enough to witness and participate in this battle. We will have no regrets in this life." These words made the surrounding cultivators of various Japanese sects nod in agreement. For a moment, everyone seemed to have forgotten the fear of death and looked at the field with great excitement and eagerness. The Japanese cultivation world was like this, not to mention the Chinese cultivation world. At this moment, for thousands of years, no one had been able to get such awe and expectation from the Chinese cultivation world and the Japanese cultivation world at the same time. The cultivators of the two countries held their breaths and looked at the two of them with rapt attention, not daring to breathe. Although they saw that the mystical silver fox and Li Yundong were looking at each other from afar in the sky and on the ground, and the world was so quiet that there was only the rustling of wind and rain and rolling thunder, they knew that once the two of them fought, it would be an earth-shattering battle. The mystical silver fox searched for a while, but it was still unable to lock on to Li Yundong's aura and location. He seemed to have merged with the thunderclouds. She couldn't find his aura anywhere, but he seemed to be everywhere. The thunderclouds were rolling, and the lightning was flashing. His looming figure was everywhere. The mystical silver fox felt a chill in her heart and said coldly, "Wisdom King, don't play such a trick to deceive little children. Don't you think it's shameful?" The mystical silver fox couldn't lock on to Li Yundong's aura, and with the previous example of Wang Yuanshan, the mystical silver fox didn't dare to rush into the clouds to fight with Li Yundong, so she tried to use the method of arousing the reincarnated Wisdom King from the clouds. This was exactly what Li Yundong wanted. He said lightly, "Mystical Silver Fox, if you think I'm playing a little child's trick, why don't you come up? Let's compete in the thunderclouds. No matter who wins or loses, it will be enough to be a good story in the future. What do you think?" Li Yundong's fearless words made the mystical silver fox more vigilant. The fox was born to be suspicious. At this time, Li Yundong's false behavior made her even more uncertain about Li Yundong's background. The mystical silver fox narrowed her eyes slightly. Although she was more and more vigilant, she was unwilling to fight with Li Yundong like this. Although she was afraid of the reincarnated Wisdom King, she also had a great psychological advantage. She had defeated him 1,000 years ago. Could it be that she couldn't do it 1,000 years later? With a thought, the mystical silver fox secretly mobilized the Xueqi in her body, making her essence, blood, and qi boil to a peak state. However, others could not see it from the outside at all. They saw that she was motionless, as quiet as a virgin. No one could tell from her slim and elegant posture that there was a power that could destroy the heavens and the earth in her. Others couldn't notice that the mystical silver fox was accumulating strength, but Li Yundong could feel that a terrible danger was pouncing on him. He was shocked and immediately made a prompt decision. He shouted loudly, "Mystical silver fox, if you don't dare to come up, forget it. I'll go down to find you." After that, he crossed his hands and flipped his 10 fingers like a blooming lotus flower. He quickly pinched one of the 14 seals of the immovable Wisdom King, the Treasure Mountain seal, which symbolized firm and vigorous power, and blasted it toward the mystical silver fox. The mystical silver fox didn't expect that Li Yundong would dare to take the initiative to attack her at this critical moment. It was as if the Buddha had come in person, looking down at her and seeing through everything about her. Her heart was even more shocked, and she subconsciously took a defensive position. She wrapped herself tightly with her 7 golden foxtails, leaving only a very small gap, so that she could observe the reincarnated Wisdom King in the clouds. Li Jiandong knew that he had to buy as much time as possible for the arrival of Zi Yuan, Su Chan, Zhou Qin, and the others. The flying body was not as good as the Yang spirit, so it was impossible for it to arrive in an instant. Even if his body could arrive at an amazing speed with the help of Su Chan and the others, it would still take a long time. If he could not hold the mystical silver fox tightly, she would be hesitant and surprised. Once the mystical silver fox saw through his empty city strategy, it would be a little bad. At this time, Li Yundong knew that he was weak, but he knew that the mystical silver fox didn't know his situation. Therefore, the weaker he was, the more he had to take the initiative to attack and put on a fearless look. He repeatedly blasted the Mahamudra at the mystical silver fox. Every move was powerful and heavy, causing the world to tremble slightly. In the scenic area of Su Ye's killing stone, bursts of golden light could be seen from afar. It was a spectacular sight. The cultivation world in the Middle Day saw that every move of Li Yundong seemed to have the power of a dragon and a tiger. Its power was so great that it was enough to shake the mountains and move the earth. It was already a great thing for others to make one move, but Li Yundong made so many Mahamudra without any effort, and the power of each move was constantly increasing. This was really amazing. For others, this Mahamudra was an extremely terrifying killing move, but for the mystical silver fox, it was just an ordinary trick. Her 7 foxtails were bright and soft. No matter how powerful the force was, it would be naturally offset by a lot of force. In addition, with the natural defensive power of the fox demon's real body, the mystical silver fox seemed to be able to deal with the explosive Mahamudra with ease. The mystical silver fox had been quietly observing Li Yundong in the clouds, as if she wanted to wait for his spiritual power to be consumed for a while before making a move. The people on both sides of the mountain saw that the mystical silver fox was being bombarded by Li Yundong's Mahamudra, but she seemed to have no power to fight back. Many people cheered excitedly. However, as the time of the Mahamudra's bombardment increased, the mystical silver fox still didn't move at all. She was like a rock in the stormy waves. This kind of silence doubled her majesty and strength, as if she had turned into a dormant volcano at this time, accumulating power. Once she exploded, she would destroy everything. At this moment, the world was filled with the rumbling sound of the Mahamudra bombardment, but there was a strange chill in everyone's heart. Gradually, the cheers on the top of the mountain disappeared. Everyone looked at the silent mystical silver fox in horror, waiting for her to explode. Chapter 863. The forbearance of the mystical silver fox was beyond everyone's expectation. Almost everyone thought that the mystical silver fox would make an earth-shattering counterattack in the next second. But in fact, the mystical silver fox was still as steady as Mount Tai and as quiet as an ancient pool. Except for her 7 golden foxtails that were resisting the Mahamudra, which were constantly twisting under the bombardment, the other parts of the mystical silver fox did not move at all. Her feet did not move an inch, and she did not move an inch. You almost there. The mystical silver fox had endured for 900 years. Naturally, it was impossible for her to endure for a while. However, she did not expect that it was her extraordinary cautiousness that made her miss the best opportunity to defeat the reincarnated Wisdom King. The crowd didn't know how long it had been. The rumbling sound seemed to last for a century. When everyone's eardrums were numb and their feet were numb, the mystical silver fox finally couldn't help it. It was not because the mystical silver fox found that Li Jiandong's aura had weakened, but because she was extremely shocked to find that after so long, the Mahamudra of the reincarnated Wisdom King was getting more powerful and more imposing. It seemed that the spiritual energy and Xueqi of the Wisdom King were like a surging river, like a vast sea, endless and never drying up. How is this possible? The mystical silver fox couldn't help but be shocked. She thought to herself, unless the reincarnated Wisdom King has already stolen the secrets of heaven, and there is endless yin and yang qi in his body to support him, so he can carry out such a high-intensity continuous attack. If that's the case, then I don't know when I will be able to continue to be beaten like this. If the reincarnated Wisdom King has enough momentum, the consequences will be unimaginable. The mystical silver fox thought about it and secretly made up her mind. She decided that she couldn't let the reincarnated Wisdom King continue to be so rampant. If she continued to fight like this, the shrimp soldiers and crab generals next to her would really not take her seriously. Although she had regarded these guys as clay dogs before, once there was an opponent on the field who could restrain her, these guys would cause great trouble for her. The Battle of Xueqi 900 years ago had taught the mystical silver fox a heavy lesson. She could not repeat the same mistake. The mystical silver fox made up her mind and immediately jumped up. She had been as quiet as a virgin and as steady as a pine tree. At this moment, she was as fierce as thunder, as fast as the wind, and as aggressive as the fire. The 7 tails of the mystical silver fox slapped out fiercely, as if they were lashing a whip in the air. With an explosive sound, the air around them suddenly dang out a ring of air waves, and the mystical silver fox was shocked. You almost there? The mystical silver fox raised her eyelids and opened her eyes angrily. A bolt of lightning shot out of her eyes and went straight into the clouds. Li Yunyang was sitting high in the thunderclouds. In an instant, he felt an extremely terrible aura coming at him. He subconsciously felt that he was in danger in front of him. Without thinking about it, he flipped his hands and slapped toward the empty place in front of him. As soon as he struck out with his palm, the mystical silver fox appeared in the position of his palm in an instant, as if the mystical silver fox had been sent to him on purpose. Li Yunyang had predicted the enemy's plan first, but he was not complacent at all. He saw the mystical silver fox let out a sharp roar, and her slender white hand came up to meet his palm. With a loud bang, her palm hit him. In an instant, Li Yunyang felt an overwhelming force rushing toward him. His yang spirit was almost about to be slapped down from the clouds, and there was even a possibility that it would be smashed. The most terrible thing about fighting with the mystical silver fox was that any opponent who challenged the mystical silver fox could not make the slightest mistake. In a fight with others, if the yang spirit was smashed, it would be a big deal to gather it again. But if it was smashed by the mystical silver fox, the yang spirit would really be broken, and it would probably not be able to gather it again. Li Yunyang's yang spirit had originally been tempered by the thunder and fire Niden. After being transformed by the Renyuan Jindan, the Diyuan Jindan, and the heavenly Jindan technique, it had already become extremely powerful and solidified. Especially after he had passed through the 9 stages of thunder retribution, his yang spirit was even more incredible. But even so, the collision of the 2 palms almost shattered Li Yunyang's yang spirit. Li Yunyang was shocked. He was secretly shocked by the strength of the mystical silver fox, but he was a strong person. At this time, not only was he not timid at all, but he became excited and fanatical. With a loud shout, the yang spirit changed in an instant. It turned into 3 heads and 6 arms, and his whole body turned navy blue. Red qi and black qi spewed out of his nostrils, and his whole body was surrounded by boiling blue flames. He roared and pounced on the mystical silver fox. The mystical silver fox was stunned, And then she was shocked and angry. Reincarnated Wisdom King. How dare you fight with only your young spirit body? Are you looking for death? Li Yunyang sneered and said, I don't know who will die yet. At this time, his young spirit had arrived, and his powerful magical weapon had not had time to keep up, so he could only fight with the Mahamudra Kung Fu. At this time, he shook his body and turned into the real body of Wisdom King with 3 heads and 6 arms. His 6 arms quickly pinched the Mahamudra, and suddenly the speed of the Mahamudra bombardment increased by 3 times. Others saw that the bombardment speed of the Mahamudra had suddenly increased. If the previous rumbling sound was like a howitzer or a cannon, bombarding one shell after another, then now it was like a self-propelled rocket launcher. 1 hit was a string, and 1 hit was a group. Everyone was stunned. Many of the Japanese cultivators who had confronted Li Yunyang on Mount Longhu looked pale. They were shocked in their hearts. It turns out that Lord Fighting Heavenly Lord didn't use his full strength at that time, did he? Or perhaps, in this short period of time, he had become even more powerful? The Japanese cultivators didn't go through the Thunder Tribulation, so they naturally didn't know that once they passed the Thunder Tribulation, they would become even more powerful. Abe Nayasan, who had been a little unconvinced by Li Yunyang and had a faint intention of competing with him, was even more shocked at this time. His eyes were wide open, and his whole body was trembling involuntarily. Gradually, tears filled his eyes. These tears were not sad, angry, or afraid. They were just tears of unwillingness. As the young patriarch of the Abe family, he had been praised since he was a child as extraordinarily talented, extraordinarily intelligent and mature, and his future achievements will definitely be above his father, and so on. It could be said that he had grown up in a honey jar. The most powerful master he had ever seen in his life was the patriarch of his family. Therefore, the highest coordinate in his life was his father. He had always thought, to be able to catch up with my father is my lifelong dream. But suddenly, he found that the highest goal in his life was so vulnerable. Under the thunderous attack of the mystical silver fox, he was killed in an instant. But this was not the most blow to him. After all, the mystical silver fox was the strongest demon in the past 1,000 years. Even in the most prosperous period of the Chinese cultivation world, there was no way to deal with this demon. 900 years ago, the Japanese cultivation world had suffered countless casualties, which was why the mystical silver fox, who only had 1 soul and 2 spirits, was sealed. It didn't seem to be a shame to die in the hands of such a peerless demon. However, Abe suddenly found that the young man he wanted to compare with was now fighting fiercely with the mystical silver fox with the mystical mystery fox. It seemed that they were neck and neck. This really shocked Abe Nayasan so much that he couldn't speak. If it were me, I'm afraid I wouldn't even be able to move my fingers, would I? Why is this man, who looks only a few years older than me, so strong? The same was true for Zhenren Wang Yuanshan. The whole Japanese cultivation world couldn't do anything about the mystical silver fox, but he had the power to face the mystical silver fox alone and almost killed him. Why? This series of questions buzzed in Abe Nayasan's mind. The roaring sound of the Mahamudra bombardment in the sky made his eardrums tremble like a drum, making his body and mind tremble. At this moment, not only him, but also many Japanese cultivators could not help but be shocked by the same question. If there was only one top master in the Chinese cultivation world who could face the mystical silver fox alone, it would be fine. But why did Wang Yuanshan and Li Jiandong all have the power to face the mystical silver fox directly? There were so many masters here, but they couldn't do anything to the mystical silver fox even if they joined forces? Why was that? Abe Nayasan clearly knew that the height reached by Li Jiandong in front of him was something that he would never be able to reach in his life. Even no one in the Abe family had ever been able to reach it. Even Yasukin Abe, who was known as the strongest in the history of the Abe family and had never been defeated in a fight, did not dare to fight with the mystical silver fox alone. Abe Nayasan had always believed that the Abe family was the strongest on Myoji, and the Shinto of the Earth Imperial sect, which the Abe family believed in, was one of the strongest sects in the Shintoism and also one of the strongest sects in the world. Although it had declined now, it would definitely rise in his hands in the near future. But now, Abe Nayasan knew that he was a frog at the bottom of a well. China was really full of hidden dragons and crouching tigers, and it was unfathomable. The cultivation world of this country had now fallen into the age of Dharma ending, and it had declined beyond recognition. It seemed that if the Japanese cultivators poked it with a finger, this behemoth, which had been powerful for 2,000 years, would collapse. But nouge! Only then did they know how childish and ridiculous this idea was. For a moment, the cultivators of all sects in Japan gradually calmed down, looking at the fierce battle in the thunderclouds with extremely complicated expressions. They saw that the three-headed and six-armed body of the immovable Wisdom King appeared in the clouds from time to time, and sometimes it shattered the clouds, showing its golden body. The figure of the mystical silver fox was always hidden in the clouds, with only 7 golden fox tails rolling and shuttling in the dense thunderclouds, like 7 flood dragons. This fierce battle was really earth-shattering. Not only was the explosive power of both sides extremely amazing, but also their continuous fighting power and endurance were so strong that it was daunting. At this time, Li Jiandong's skin became darker and darker, and his whole face became as blue as iron. His 6 arms were like black sand, and the blue flame around him was so strong that it seemed to ignite the whole sea of clouds. His power was even stronger than before. When the cultivators of the 2 sects at the foot of the mountain saw this, they were extremely shocked. They didn't expect that Li Jiandong and the mystical silver fox could fight head-on for so long, and they could still become stronger and stronger. This was really terrifying. However, the mystical silver fox knew that Li Jiandong would not be able to continue like this for a long time, because his young spirit body was far away from the cauldron, and it was impossible for him to continue fighting like this indefinitely. Although she could not take advantage of him for the time being, she would definitely be able to defeat Li Jiandong in one fell swoop. Li Jiandong was also well aware of this. Although he was a little anxious, he knew that he could not do anything at the moment. Otherwise, there would be endless troubles in the future. The mystical silver fox would never give him a chance. Li Jiandong was gritting his teeth and holding on. At this time, the meridians of the yang spirit all over his body were swollen as if they were about to explode. It was as if countless small snakes were coiling and rolling on his body, which looked extremely terrifying. After the mystical silver fox blasted away the 3 Mahamudra that Li Jiandong had slapped over, she finally found that the power of Li Jiandong's Mahamudra had begun to weaken. Although this kind of change was almost imperceptible, she was still keenly aware that Li Jiandong was a little weak. At this time, she finally couldn't help laughing out loud. The immovable Wisdom King, prepare to die. I want you to have a taste of my soul being scattered in all directions. After that, she shouted sharply, and 7 fox tails rolled toward Li Jiandong from all directions, as if she had set up an inescapable net. She herself rushed toward Li Jiandong like lightning. At this time, Li Jiandong saw that her attack was like a chow, and it was coming fiercely. At this time, his breath was a little weak, and the body of the furnace had not arrived yet. He did not dare to fight head-on with the mystical silver fox in front of him. He immediately moved, and the yang spirit broke into countless small clones, which went in all directions. He wanted to escape through the gap in the foxtail net of the mystical silver fox before it was completely closed. The mystical silver fox was stunned for a moment, and then shouted, "Want to escape? It's not that easy." Her 7 foxtails rolled up like a strong wind. She didn't chase around, but always chased after some of Li Jiandong's yang spirit avatars. She knew that with Li Jiandong's strength, it would be impossible for her to catch up with all of them if the yang spirit was broken into countless clones and fled in all directions. But if she only caught up with some of them, it would be easy. As long as her foxtail could sweep a part of his yang spirit avatar, she would be able to shatter it, and it would also cause a lot of damage to Li Jiandong. The gap between his strength and hers would be further widened. The mystical silver fox's plan was very precise. But at this moment, just as her foxtail was about to roll up Li Jiandong's scattered avatars, 2 beams of green light suddenly flashed in the sky, and 2 extremely sharp chi pounced straight at the mystical silver fox. Chapter 864. The mystical silver fox only felt that these 2 sharp chis were piercing to the bone. Even a strong person like her did not dare to underestimate them. She immediately retracted her foxtail, which was chasing Li Yundong, and stood in front of her like a barrier. With 2 crisp sounds, the 2 cyan lights hit the golden city wall. They did not even make a small pit, and were immediately bounced away. At this time, the mystical silver fox took a closer look and found that the lightning was the Bahuang sword and the sword. Li Yundong's yang spirit clone got rid of the mystical silver fox's pursuit at this critical moment. He finally held on until his human cauldron rushed to the battlefield, followed by his powerful magical weapon, as well as Su Chan, Zi Yuan, Zhou Qin, and the others who arrived later. As soon as Li Yundong's human cauldron rushed to the battlefield, the yang spirit clones scattered around immediately gathered in his body. Although the yang spirit could fight alone, if it was too far away from the human cauldron, it would cause the effect of a guest army expedition and consume a lot of unnecessary spiritual energy and Xueqi. At this time, Li Yundong's yang spirit returned to the aperture. Suddenly, the internal organs of the human cauldron began to run. His qi and blood ran quickly, and he immediately made up for the Xueqi that Li Yundong had lost before. In just a breath, Li Yundong was full of energy again, and his eyes were full of divine light. The mystical silver fox suddenly saw the Bahuang sword, and then saw 3 experts at the level of thunder retribution suddenly appear in the sky. Her heart was even more shocked. The mystical silver fox knew that she had missed the best opportunity to defeat the reincarnated Wisdom King. Although she felt a little regretful in her heart, the mystical silver fox's will did not waver at all. She narrowed her eyes and looked at Li Yundong with a sneer. Her 7 fox tails slowly wrapped around her, as if she was waiting for him. She said, "Well, Wisdom King, I haven't seen you for 1,000 years, but you are still as cunning as ever." At this time, Li Yundong's yang spirit returned to its position, and his heart was at ease. He smiled slightly and no longer argued with the mystical silver fox. With a wave of his hand, the Bahuang sword and the sword instantly returned to his side. The sword qi was dense, and the green light was lingering. At the same time, the burning thumb pot and the fan of 7 treasures also jumped out. One was surrounded by glazed green light, and the other was filled with golden light and black qi. The fan leaves stood like a wall, surrounding Li Yundong. The golden Sanskrit characters on them were shining in the air. They looked solemn, and their clothes were burning like Buddha. At this time, Su Chan, Zi Yuan, Zhou Qin, and the others rushed over in a hurry. They were all out of breath. When they saw that Li Yundong had put out all his powerful magical weapons with great fanfare, their hearts moved, and they all understood what Li Yundong meant. At this time, if the mystical silver fox rushed up regardless of everything, maybe the 3 of them would be caught off guard by the mystical silver fox. Li Yundong was very likely to be threatened in order to protect them. But the mystical silver fox was too suspicious, and she was too smart. Sometimes, once a person was too smart, he had to think about everything first. Although it was not a bad thing to think about the future before entering the city, in the battle of fighting with methods is like using troops, the opportunity was fleeting. If he hesitated a little, the opportunity would be gone in a flash, and he would never return. Zi Yuan soon learned from Li Yundong's style. She took out the 2 powerful magical weapons that she had just lost and recovered and repaired. One of them, the azure glass mirror, was raised to the sky by her. The surface of the mirror was colorful, and it shone with a colorful divine light. It hit the mystical silver fox's body directly, like a searchlight, and locked her figure. Her other magic treasure, the purple gold luo pan, was floating in front of her. It spun around and emitted a purple gold radiance. It was unknown what it was used for, but from the majestic spiritual energy it emitted, it was clear that it was not an ordinary magic treasure. Although the mystical silver fox was experienced and knowledgeable, she had never seen these 2 powerful magical weapons. Her expression turned serious, and she became more vigilant. Although she was not afraid of most magic arts and powerful magical weapons, if she met a powerful magical weapon that she was not familiar with and rashly fought with, she would probably suffer a great loss. Previously, she had been sneak attacked by Hel Wuzhong, and she had almost died in the ditch. The mystical silver fox saw that there were 2 swords and 2 treasures around Li Yundong, and there were also 2 treasures around Zi Yuan. The most exaggerated thing was that Zhou Qin, who was next to Zi Yuan, also took out the cold sawtooth Vajra wheel called Qi. With a shake of her arm, the Vajra wheel around her arm flew into the sky in an instant, penetrated into the clouds, and shuttled quickly, making a whooshing sound. It was faintly discernible. Sometimes it appeared, and sometimes it hung quietly in the sky, like a crescent moon. Then, Zhou Qin shook out a fiery red leather whip from her waist. This powerful magical weapon was just a mediocre thing in LV Fengping's hands, but in Zhou Qin's hands, it became extremely sharp. With a shake of her long whip, the Vulcan's whip burst into blazing flames with a clatter. The snake head on the whip hissed, and it was obvious that it was not a powerful magical weapon to be trifled with. Seeing that Zi Yuan and Zhou Qin had both taken out their 2 extremely powerful magical weapons at the same time, Su Chan was dumbfounded. She thought to herself, both Sister Zi Yuan and Sister Zhou Qin have powerful magical weapons. What should I use? Do I want to show my fox's real body to scare people? However, The little girl also knew that the enemy at present was the mystical silver fox. If she revealed her fox real body, she might cause some trouble. Although there were many people here who knew her, it was better not to expose some things. The little girl suddenly remembered that when she and Zi Yuan had gone to Harrisburg in the United States, they had met Taoist Su Ling. After Li Yundong seized the Yu Huang Xian Du, he had given this powerful magical weapon to Zi Yuan, but Zi Yuan had given it to her in private. At that time, Su Chan didn't want such a powerful magical weapon, because she felt that it was a gift from Li Yundong to sister Zi Yuan, and it was not good for her to take it away. However, Zi Yuan said that if she didn't want this powerful magical weapon, then she would smash it. She was so scared that she had no choice but to promise to keep it for her for the time being. At that time, her casual words finally made it possible for her to go into battle empty-handed. She immediately took out the Yu Huang Xian Du that she had brought with her. However, the powerful magical weapons of Li Yundong, Zi Yuan, and Zhou Qin were all colorful. They were surrounded by divine light and looked majestic. Only her powerful magical weapon was a black wooden board floating in the air. There was no light and no spirit. From a distance, it looked like a piece of rotten wood. It was really a bit of a wet blanket. Everyone saw her standing beside Li Yundong, a beautiful and lovely little girl, surrounded by magical weapons. In front of her stood a black wooden board that looked like a coffin. Looking at her appearance, she stared as if she wanted to scare people. However, her behavior, coupled with her natural charm, made people not think that she was scary at all. They only thought that she was a little funny, which made people unable to help laughing. The mystical silver fox saw these powerful magical weapons from afar. The black wooden board seemed a little familiar, but she couldn't remember what it was for a moment. Among the many powerful magical weapons, she was most familiar with the burning thumb pot and the fan of 7 treasures, especially the burning thumb pot. If such a powerful magical weapon was used by the reincarnated Wisdom King, its power would be so great that it would be terrifying for a fox demon like her. When the mystical silver fox saw that Li Yundong had brought 3 beautiful women of the Thunder Retribution and a lot of powerful magical weapons beside him, she was even more shocked. She knew that Li Yundong had come prepared this time. I'm afraid I can't be kind to him. At this time, seeing that Li Yundong had frightened the mystical silver fox, the cultivators of the various sects in the Middle Sun were all excited. They imitated his style and took out their own powerful magical weapons. For a moment, there were countless powerful magical weapons in the sky, and the sky was full of divine light. This scene was like countless shrimp soldiers and crab generals following behind the divine generals. As long as the boss rushed up, they would rush up together. One person spat and drowned the fox spirit. The mystical silver fox was furious. She couldn't help but raise her head and laugh angrily. Well, you're going to rebel. As she said this, she pointed at the fan of 7 treasures, which was closest to her, and shouted angrily, "You bastard, when I was the master of the Fox Zen sect, you were still a powerful magical weapon in my hand. Now you're helping the reincarnated Wisdom King to deal with me?" The powerful magical weapons also had fear. When the fan of 7 treasures was scolded by the mystical silver fox, the divine light around it suddenly disappeared. It was so scared that it began to tremble all over. The fan leaves collided with each other, making a clanging sound. It subconsciously wanted to turn around and escape. Li Yundong was shocked. He immediately pressed the fan of 7 treasures with one hand and instilled his zhenqi and spiritual energy into it, making it gradually calm down. As soon as the fan of 7 treasures stabilized a little, the golden Sanskrit characters in the fan leaves immediately jumped out one by one, like a golden wall of words, burning fiercely. Li Yundong turned his wrist and quickly recited the mantra. A Mahamudra hit the golden Sanskrit characters on the golden wall. With a bang, the Mahamudra, with a golden Sanskrit character, hit the mystical silver fox heavily. The mystical silver fox's golden foxtail curled up and resisted the blow. Everyone heard a muffled bang. The figure of the mystical silver fox was slapped and swayed. Then, her golden foxtail, which was impervious to water and fire and was not afraid of almost all powerful magical weapons and magic arts, was hissing and emitting a burst of green smoke, as if it had been scalded by the golden Sanskrit characters. When everyone saw this, they were so excited that they began to shout loudly. This was a great shock. The mystical silver fox knew that the reason why she could be so fearless among the crowd was that these 7 golden foxtails could attack and defend, and she could advance and retreat freely. If these 7 foxtails were destroyed, it would not be so easy for her to fight against more than one enemy. The mystical silver fox was shocked and finally had the intention to retreat. She gritted her teeth and was about to escape when she suddenly heard a voice coming from afar. Beans are cooked and beans are burned. Beans are crying in the cauldron. They are born from the same root. Why are you in such a hurry to kill each other? Xueqi, you were originally a member of our Fox Zen sect. Why are you helping outsiders to deal with our own people? As he said this, a tall and burly man came from afar in the air. It was Lu Yi, the eight-tailed earth fox. As usual, we will carry out the free of charge to the end. Please support us with practical actions. If there are any chapters out of order, urging for updates, or wrong chapters, please register as a member of this site and send us a text message. We will do our best to meet your needs. Send it 24 by 7 hours a day. As usual, we will carry out the free of charge to the end. Please support us with practical actions. If there are any chapters out of order, urging for updates, or wrong chapters, please register as a member of this site and send us a text message. We will do our best to meet your needs. Send it 24 by 7 hours a day. Chapter 865. Lu Ye's appearance shocked Li Jiandong and the others. Su Chan's eyes widened and she stammered, "Grandmaster. You really didn't die?" "Sure enough." Lu Yi chuckled and gave Li Jiandong a meaningful look. "It seems that you already understand?" As he said this, Lu Yi bowed deeply in the direction of the mystical silver fox and said in a clear voice, "Lu Yi, the 22nd leader of the Fox Zen School, pays his respects to the 4th leader of the Fox Zen School, the mystical silver fox." The mystical silver fox narrowed her eyes slightly and couldn't help looking Lu Yi up and down. Suddenly, she said suspiciously, "I seem to have seen you somewhere?" Lu Yi raised his head slightly and said, "Grandmaster, I'm not talented. I've been working hard for more than 10 years in order to save you and revitalize our Fox Zen School. I could have met you earlier, but when I was in Jingdu, the bald donkeys of the Tiantai sect interrupted your birth, so I couldn't meet you until today." The mystical silver fox's face changed. "Did you save me?" Lu Ye's smile faded, and he didn't dare to be arrogant at all. He lowered his head slightly and said respectfully, "That's me." The mystical silver fox looked at Lu Yi, and her expression was a little uncertain. She was arrogant and conceited. Although she knew that it was impossible for her to escape from the seal for no reason, and that someone must have saved her, Lu Yi had pointed it out in front of everyone, which made her feel a little embarrassed. Lu Yi felt that the mystical silver fox's eyes were sweeping over and over his body, like a bone-scraping knife, which made him feel cold all over. He couldn't help but feel a little nervous. At this time, the people on the mountain where the Japanese cultivation world were located heard their conversation, and they all began to clamor. When Abe heard Lu Ye's words, he immediately roared angrily, "Did you kill my grandfather?" The monks of the Tiantai sect also glared at Lu Yi. "This is the culprit in front of us. Kill him. He was the one who killed the great monk Zhang." Although Imagawa Kagumo had died in the hands of Li Jiandong in the end, the cultivators of the Tiantai sect also knew that if Imagawa Kagumo hadn't been seriously injured in the Demon Sealing War, he would have died. Therefore, in the final analysis, this account could indeed be counted on Lu Yi. When the other cultivators of the Tiantai sect heard Lu Ye's words, they were all furious. They didn't dare to provoke the mystical silver fox, but they still dared to provoke Lu Yi. All of a sudden, some cultivators of the Tiantai sect and Abe jumped forward and rushed at Lu Yi angrily. The distance between Lu Yi and the mystical silver fox was not far. With the ability of the mystical silver fox, she could arrive in the blink of an eye, but the mystical silver fox did not move at all. Although these people were not weak, Yi the Tiantai was Ming the Yi and said Fox He family they were Hu, Yi Lu Hu Lan Emperor He Yu Ming Dragon Li He Yun Li Yi Hu He family He they Lu Yi Hu, Yu family Hu, He Yi Yang family Chen Yar. Although these people were not weak, Lu Ye's Cosmos Emerald Pole was a magic weapon that could compete with the Seven-Star Sword. The Seven-Star Sword was one of the 5 great swords of Chinese Taoism. One could imagine its power. These Japanese cultivators had never seen this powerful magical weapon before. They saw an opium pipe pointing at their chests, and they all took out their weapons and powerful magical weapons to fight against it. With a clanging sound, the Chenkuan jade rod smashed on the weapons and magical weapons of these people. Suddenly, countless sparks and ashes splashed out from the pipe. These Japanese cultivators didn't expect that this powerful magical weapon would have such a sinister effect. Suddenly, Sparks splashed on their bodies and eyes. They were in so much pain that they scratched their eyes and chests crazily and cried out. At this time, Lu Ye's 8 foxtails quickly rolled up and swept toward Abe and the others. The Japanese cultivators on the top of the mountain were all shocked and said in surprise, "Stop." ISE Divine Light was entrusted by Abe Yasumi before his death, so he had been very careful about Abe Naoto. When he saw Abe Naoto rushing out recklessly, he immediately became highly vigilant. At this time, seeing Lu Ye's 8 tails sweeping over like a gust of wind sweeping fallen leaves, he was suddenly shocked. He immediately threw out a talisman that he had been holding in his hand. An invisible shikigami appeared in front of Abe Naoto, who was covering his eyes and wailing in pain in an instant. Yusun Aesi Shinguang rescued Abe, but he couldn't save the monks of the Tiantai sect. These monks were rolled up by Lu Ye's 8 cyan foxtails, and suddenly disappeared. Everyone saw that the 8 foxtails suddenly tightened, and there was a crackling sound. The bones of these people had been squeezed into powder. Everyone was shocked. They didn't expect that Lu Yi was also such a strong master. A mystical silver fox was already very difficult to deal with. Now there was an 8-tailed fox? Could it be that God really wanted to destroy them? Everyone was looking at Lu Yi in horror, but they saw his 8 cyan foxtails shake, and a few bloody corpses fell from them, falling from the air. However, Lu Yi didn't even blink, as if he had just trampled a few ants to death. His expression was still very humble. He said to the mystical silver fox, "Grandmaster, let me beat these inferior people for you." At this time, the mystical silver fox nodded slowly. Although she was offended because of her arrogance and conceit, she also knew that it was not a good way to fight alone. If someone had helped her in the 2 fierce battles, the consequences would have been completely different. Especially now that she was fighting against her 1,000-year-old enemy again, she really needed help. Moreover, no matter what, the person in front of her was a member of the Fox Zen school and a benefactor who had saved her. There was no need for her to fall out with him. Seeing that Lu Yi was also a powerful 8-tailed fox, the mystical silver fox finally accepted his appearance and said, "Well, it's rare that there are juniors in the Fox Zen school who have such thoughts, unlike some people." As she said this, she glared at Su Chan with sharp eyes. Seeing her glare, Su Chan was a little afraid. She subconsciously hid behind Li Jiandong, but soon she summoned up the courage to grimace at the mystical silver fox with a grimace. The mystical silver fox was furious in her heart and snorted angrily. She hated traitors the most in her life. Seeing that the people of the Fox Zen school had turned against her sworn enemy, she was so angry that her teeth itched. She couldn't wait to crush Su Chan's bones and scatter her ashes to make her feel comfortable. Seeing that Su Chan still dared to provoke her, her killing intent immediately rose and she was eager to have a try. Seeing that she was about to rush forward, Li Jiandong immediately took half a step forward and stood in front of the mystical silver fox like a mountain, protecting Su Chan's body. His eyes were like lightning as he stared at the mystical silver fox, which immediately made the pressure on the mystical silver fox increase greatly. She did not dare to act rashly. At this time, another person flew over leisurely from afar. This person had a high nose and deep eyes, and a wisp of yellow beard under his chin. He did not look like a person from the Central Plains at all, but he was Wan Zhenyuan, the leader of the Gazao sect. As soon as Wan Zhenyuan appeared, he immediately stopped in midair and narrowed his eyes to quickly observe the situation on the field. Many people on the top of the mountain of the Chinese cultivation sects were overjoyed to see the leader of the Chinese Taoist external alchemy sect appear. They said loudly, "Master Wan, you came at the right time. Let's kill the demons together." Wan Zhenyuan didn't seem to hear it. He just slowly stroked his beard, his eyes shining brightly, as if he was quickly measuring the comparison between the 2 forces on the field. Lu Yi seemed to know what he was thinking. He said coldly, "Wan Zhenyuan, do you want to go back on your word at the last minute? Do you want to nullify the agreement between you and me? Don't forget that you were involved in all of this." Lu Ye's words shocked all the cultivators of China. The cultivators who had called out to Wan Zhenyuan before suddenly felt as if they had been slapped in the face. Their faces were burning, and they widened their eyes, unable to speak. Wan Zhenyuan snorted coldly in his heart, but he broke into a smile. He laughed and said, "Zhenren Lu, you don't have to push me. I, Wan Zhenyuan, am a man of my word. If I say I will help you, I will definitely help you." As he spoke, he moved and landed next to Lu Yi. At this time, all the cultivators of China were furious. They pointed at Wang Jinyuan and shouted abuse. Wang Jinyuan pretended not to hear them. He still had a wicked smile on his face, but his small eyes were narrowed. From time to time, there was a flash of cunning in them. When Li Yundong saw that the two guys who had been hiding behind the scenes and secretly controlling all this had finally appeared, he immediately became vigilant. He couldn't help but look at Zi Yuan and see a trace of surprise in each other's eyes. He couldn't help but think of the conversation between the two people he had overheard when he had visited Mount Gazao at night. Now it seemed that they must be Lu Yi and Wang Jinyuan. The two of them had set up such a big trap, so it could be seen that they had a big plan. Now that they had all appeared, it meant that the time had come for them to reveal their true intentions. It also meant that they would not show up here if they were not absolutely sure. After glancing at the cunning Wang Jinyuan, Li Yundong's somewhat complicated gaze finally fell on Lu Yi. He looked at the man in front of him, who looked very strange but had a very familiar identity. He said in a deep voice, "Senior Lu, I respect you as the former leader of the Fox Zen School, so I will call you senior for the last time. However, there are a few things I don't understand that I want to ask you." Lu Yi smiled slightly. "Oh. There are also things that Wisdom King doesn't understand. I don't dare to ask for advice. If you have something to ask, just ask." Li Yundong said in a deep voice, "When I was in the Zhuji phase and went to Tibet, I heard someone remind me in the Kathuo temple. Was that person you?" Lu Yi nodded. "Yes, it was me." Li Yundong's eyes narrowed and he asked, "You passed on the position of the leader of the Fox Zen School to me in order to hide it from everyone, didn't you?" Lu Yi smiled slightly. "Yes." As he said this, he looked at Li Yundong with interest. "To my surprise, I thought that you would be angry and impulsive because I used you, but I didn't expect that your cultivation has reached a state where you are neither shocked nor angry. Not bad, you are indeed the reincarnated Wisdom King." Li Yundong said lightly, "I only agreed to take over the position of leader for Su Chan, not for anything else. You deceived me and used me, so what? Do you think I will be angry because of such a thing? Don't flatter yourself." Lu Yi couldn't help laughing. Well said. Is there anything else you want to ask?" Chapter 866. Li Yundong snorted and asked again, "When you faked your death, your disciples did it for you. Why did you kill your own disciple?" Lu Yi snorted disapprovingly. "Who told her to find out that I faked my death? Those who achieve great things don't care about small things." Li Yundong couldn't help but fly into a rage. "They trusted you and followed you. When you died they were so sad. It's okay that you deceived them and did such a cruel thing, but you don't have any remorse? Are you still a human being?" Lu Ye's expression was cold, and his tone was even colder. "In your eyes, I am not a human being, am I not?" This sentence made Li Yundong choke and speechless. The prejudice against the Fox Zen School in the cultivation world was deep-rooted and almost irreversible. At that time, Shiyuan Temple had caught 2 big golden snakes and he had followed them all the way. In the end, one of the 2 big golden snakes had been killed by Zhang Yuan, and the other had died for love. Before dying, the big golden snake had said with great sadness, "I hope I will never be a demon again in my next life." This sentence left a very deep impression on Li Yundong. He knew that the 2 countries had previously been repelled by those who were not of our race must have different intentions, let alone the huge gap between human beings and the demon clan. Li Jiandong took a deep breath and restrained all his anger in an instant. He took a deep look at Lu Yi and then asked, "Those who achieve great things don't care about trifles. I'd like to see how you are going to accomplish this great thing. Chao Yi and Lu Yuehong are also your spies in the Fox Zen School, aren't they?" At this time, Lu Yi had completely shown his cards to Li Yundong. There was no need to worry about covering up for Chao Yi and the others. He laughed and said, "Yes, but it's a pity that they are not people who can do great things. They almost ruined my plan." Li Yundong said coldly, "You found out early on that Yen Feng had sneaked into the Fox Zen School disguised as a Moashi. You had been planning this for a long time, hadn't you?" Lu Yi smiled slightly and said proudly, "That's right." As he said this, he looked at Li Yundong with great emotion and said, "I had planned the layout a long time ago, but unfortunately, I lacked a person who could shoulder the heavy responsibility of the Fox Zen School for me. I had been looking for you for many years, but I didn't expect that you would." Before he could finish his words, the mystical silver fox, who had been silent all this time, couldn't help laughing and interrupted Lu Yi. You didn't expect that the person you had worked so hard to choose was my sworn enemy, the reincarnated Wisdom King. The reincarnated Wisdom King actually became the leader of our Fox Zen school? The mystical silver fox's laughter was full of indescribable sarcasm. This is really the funniest joke in the world. Lu Yi immediately looked terrified and said to the mystical silver fox, Grandmaster, it's all my fault for being blind. The mystical silver fox was also an ambitious person. Since she admitted what Lu Yi had done for her, she interrupted him with a smile and said, It's time and fate. This is destiny, not something you and I can control. That year, I was soft-hearted and spared the reincarnated Wisdom King's life. Then, I taught him how to cultivate and how to fight. Who would have thought that he would turn around and betray me? He brought people to torture my soul. I didn't expect that 1,000 years later, the person you carefully selected would be the reincarnated Wisdom King again. Is this a coincidence? No, this must be destiny. God wants me to face him once again. Li Yundong looked at the mystical silver fox with a dark face. He said coldly, Mystical silver fox, I don't care what the grudge between you and me in my previous life was. But if you want to do good deeds in this life, I won't interfere in your affairs. But if you want to do evil, don't blame me for subduing the demons. The mystical silver fox couldn't help laughing wildly. What is good and what is evil? What did I do wrong back then to provoke you to attack me? It's just because I'm a different species, a much stronger one than you, so you can't tolerate my existence. Li Yundong narrowed his eyes. Just as he was about to speak, he suddenly heard a Buddhist chant coming from afar. Amitabha! Everyone turned their heads to look and saw a group of monks dressed in yellow robes walking towards them from the foot of the mountain. Some of the monks were holding Buddhist staffs, some were holding alms bowls, and some were holding banners or rulers. They walked slowly, but every step they took was almost exactly the same. It was as if they were walking towards the mountain. You almost there. You almost there. Li Yundong looked over and recognized that among the old monks, there were two whom he had seen before. They were the abbot of Shiyuan Temple and Jinshan Temple. Among them, Purin, the abbot of Shiyuan Temple, came over from afar. But as soon as he opened his mouth, his voice was as clear as a whisper. He said, Mystical silver fox, what you did to Master Xueqi back then. He kindly saved you, but you repaid his kindness with ingratitude. Such a thing is really intolerable. How can you quibble? It would have been better if she hadn't mentioned this matter. As soon as she mentioned it, her blood-red eyes were filled with a ferocious killing intent. She said in a fierce voice, It's all because you bald donkeys are arrogant and think highly of yourselves. You think that you are all the reincarnations of living Buddhas. There is no one else in your eyes but yourself. When you see that I'm a fox demon, you despise me. Humph, I treated Xueqi sincerely, but he didn't care. If he hadn't looked down on my fox demon body, how could he have done this? Bald donkey. It's fine if you don't mention this today. If you mention it, I will definitely tear you into pieces. It was really a little terrifying to be threatened by the mystical silver fox. It could be said that being targeted by her meant that half of one's body had already stepped into the gates of hell. More than half of one's body had already died. When the other half would die, it would only depend on when she would make a move. Purin smiled slightly, formed a palm with one hand, and said in a clear voice, Amitabha, death is just a retreat. What's there to be afraid of? His words made many cultivators in the Japanese cultivation world, who could understand Chinese, secretly feel excited. They knew that Purin must have heard what they had said before. At this time, when he said it, he also faintly praised their open-mindedness and fearlessness. Compared with Taoism and Shintoism, there was less filth and friction between the Buddhist cultivation world of China and Japan. Almost every year, there was a large number of Buddhist exchanges between the two countries, and they were very close. Therefore, it was reasonable for Purin to cover for them and make them lose face. At this moment, Kaisai Hikari of the Zhenyan Tantrism stood up and said in fluent Chinese, Amitabha, good, good. I wonder which eminent monk of China is coming? Purin was elected as the leader of this trip by a group of monks. He smiled slightly and was about to speak when he heard the mystical silver fox in the air shouting angrily like thunder. All the crows in the world are black. What's the difference between the bald donkeys in the world? You all deserve to die. After that, she let out a shrill roar and rushed toward Purin and the others like lightning. Li Yunyang was shocked and immediately blasted out a Mahamudra. This Mahamudra carried the golden Sanskrit characters on the psychic fan of 7 treasures, which had a strong effect of breaking the devil. Even the mystical silver fox did not dare to be careless. Her body just swayed, and her whole body turned in the air. She turned around and rushed toward Li Yunyang and the others. However, the moment she turned around, she flicked her 7 golden fox tails and smashed them toward Purin and the others with lightning and thunder. The momentum was so fierce that the ground was lifted up by her. For a moment, sand and stones were flying, and a strong wind was blowing. Purin and the others quickly set up a formation on the spot and took out the powerful magical weapons in their hands. For a moment, a golden Vajra warrior appeared in the air. With a roar, it pounced on the mystical silver fox's foxtail. Their magic formation was not prepared to deal with the mystical silver fox, but to deal with Lu Yi. Moreover, Purin and the others were not stronger than Kaisai Hikari and the others in terms of personal strength. The magic formation set up by Kaisai Hikari and the others was also penetrated by the mystical silver fox, and there was no deterrent at all. At this time, how could Purin and the others resist the mystical silver fox? With this smash, the Vajra warrior was immediately smashed into pieces. Purin and the others were shocked. Several monks immediately vomited blood and fell down with their heads raised. Li Yundong and the others were shocked when they saw this. They wanted to rescue them, but they saw that the mystical silver fox had already rushed in front of them. Her white hand was as white as snow, and she punched him in the face. The punch looked ordinary, but its power was so great that the hairs on Li Yundong's face stood on end. Li Yundong was horrified. He immediately flicked his finger on the burning thumb pot. At the same time, with a thought in his mind, the Wanhuang and Liuhe sword pounced on him from both sides like lightning. The leaves of the fan of 7 treasures in front of him closed with a swish, as if they had built a steel wall. At this time, Zi Yuan, Zhou Qin, and Su Chan, who were next to him, were coming at him aggressively. This punch seemed to be going to shatter the sky and tear the earth apart. Watching from the side, they felt the strong wind blowing on their faces, which made them almost breathless, let alone Li Yundong, who was rushing forward. Although Zi Yuan had 2 magic treasures in her hands, these 2 magic treasures were not used for direct combat, so they could not directly participate in the battle. She had to quickly take out the hidden 9th heaven Zi Yuan silk and stab it at the left side of the mystical silver fox. The 9th heaven Zi Yuan silk spun rapidly in the air, constantly pulling into the shape of a spear. The tip of the spear was like a spiral drill, spinning at a high speed. Even if it was an indestructible golden body, it would probably have a hole drilled through it. Zhou Qin was also unwilling to show weakness on the right side. The Chiwe was like an electric saw, making a clanging sound and chopping at the right arm of the mystical silver fox. The Vulcan's whip in her hand made a crisp sound with a snap. Like a wild snake spitting out its tongue, it bit at the fist of the mystical silver fox. Su Chan was the closest to Li Yundong. She gritted her teeth and was about to stand up, but she heard Lu Yi snort angrily. Su Chan, do you really want to be our enemy? Su Chan was stunned subconsciously, and then she saw Lu Ye's Chenkuan jade stick pointing at her. As soon as Lu Yi made his move, Purin and the others immediately chanted Buddhist scriptures loudly and set up a formation to cast spells. One by one, Vajra arhats rose from the formation and pounced on Lu Yi. Seeing this, Wang Jinyuan laughed and said, "It's so lively, so lively. Let me see what the fellow Taoists of Shiyuan Temple and Jinshan Temple are capable of." As he said this, he also took out his Yellow River 9 Bends ruler and rushed toward the formation. At this time, the other cultivators of the Chinese and Japanese sects saw that the field was in a mess, and they all made their moves. For a moment, the situation on the field was extremely intense, and in an instant, it turned into a big battle. Chapter 867. The all-out attack of the mystical silver fox made the situation on the field extremely chaotic. Li Yundong's powerful magical weapons felt a terrible threat coming at their master, so they tried their best to protect him. The first one to bear the brunt was the fan of 7 treasures. As Li Yundong's strength increased, his own strength also increased. Although it could not change as freely as the 9th heaven Zi Yuan silk, it was also an extremely rare top-grade magic weapon that could attack and defend. Especially in the hands of the reincarnated Wisdom King, its power was extremely terrifying. The talisman of the Vajra Sutra engraved on the fan could break the demon body of the mystical silver fox, which was a great threat to the mystical silver fox. Therefore, the mystical silver fox was sure that if she launched a fierce attack on Li Yundong, this powerful magical weapon would automatically save its master. Therefore, at the beginning, she attacked Purin, but in fact, it was a feint. She went straight to Li Yundong. Everyone thought that she wanted to kill Li Yundong first, but in fact, her real target was Li Yundong's fan of 7 treasures. At the moment, the fan of 7 treasures was piled up in front of Li Yundong like a circle of steel walls. It was surrounded by blazing golden Sanskrit characters, like a city burning with flames, with great pressure. If it had been anyone else, they would have been overwhelmed by the terrifying aura of the fan of 7 treasures and would not have dared to come forward. However, the mystical silver fox was not afraid at all. Her entire body was wrapped in incomparably strong Xueqi, and she punched the leaf of the fan of 7 treasures. Although the golden Sanskrit characters of the fan of 7 treasures could break the demon body of the mystical silver fox, it was because the Sanskrit Vajra Sutra itself had a strong effect of exorcising demons and evil spirits. However, it could not do anything to the purest spiritual power and Xueqi. In this world, magic power and true essence were invisible, untouchable, and illusory. They were like air, formless and intangible, and could be dispersed. However, they did not possess any attributes, and could not be restrained by anti-magic treasures. Although the mystical silver fox's demon chi was extremely heavy, its dharma power and Xueqi came from the yin-yang spirit. It was peaceful, pure and vigorous, without any evil chi. Her fist slammed into the fan of 7 treasures psychic fan, and with a loud buzzing sound, the golden Sanskrit flames surrounding the fan were shattered. Some of the blades were even dented and distorted beyond recognition. The moment she blasted the fan of 7 treasures, the Bahuang sword and the other swords around her also whistled in an instant. Zhou Qin and Zi Yuan's powerful magical weapons also came straight from the left and right sides. The mystical silver fox's punch almost destroyed the psychic fan of 7 treasures in an instant. She saw that the psychic fan was trembling and wanted to escape. She was about to continue to chase after it when she saw a whip surrounded by flames on her wrist. This was Zhou Qin's Vulcan's whip. The moment the snake head of the Vulcan's whip wrapped around the mystical silver fox's wrist, it immediately hissed and spat out its tongue, biting towards the mystical silver fox's wrist. At the same time, the 9th heaven Zi Yuan silk drilled into the mystical silver fox's waist like a drill. The human waist was the softest, and it was one of the most vulnerable and important parts of the human body. If it was drilled like this, it would either die or be disabled. Seeing that they were besieging her, the mystical silver fox immediately snorted angrily. She backhanded her elbow and smashed it behind her. At the same time, her small arm swung out like an iron whip. It was the famous Overlord elbow in close combat. This seemed simple, but it was extremely powerful. Ordinary martial artists would first practice push-ups on the ground with their elbows, then practice on the cinders, then practice on the fine glass slag, and finally practice on the iron nail board. Their elbows would be as hard as steel. With one elbow, they could break a tree trunk as thick as an arm. Only then could they be considered to have achieved something. If an ordinary martial artist used this move to hit the vital part of a cultivator who had not reached the Jinshin phase, he would still be able to knock the cultivator to the ground. It could be seen how powerful this move was. Because this move was simple and practical, it was extremely powerful, so it was in all the martial arts moves of various sections. It could be said to be as common as Black Tiger steals the heart and Monkey steals the peach. However, when the mystical silver fox used this move with the strength of the 9-tailed fox, its power was really terrifying to the extreme. She wrapped her whole body in real chi, and with the tip of her elbow, she hit the side of the 9th heaven Zi Yuan silk. Then, she swung her arm like a steel whip, and with a snap, the 9th heaven Zi Yuan silk was sent flying far away. It was like a cricket master hitting a home run, and in the blink of an eye, the magic weapon disappeared. Zi Yuan and the 9th heaven Zi Yuan silk were connected in mind. She instantly felt the power and horror of this move. Even though she was knowledgeable and experienced in fighting, she was so shocked that her heart was pounding. She knew that if the 9th heaven Zi Yuan silk hadn't been a soft and invisible magic weapon, it would have been destroyed by this elbow. The mystical silver fox instantly blasted the 9th heaven Zi Yuan silk away. At this time, Zhou Qin's Vulcan's whip also bit her wrist. However, at this time, her whole body was full of Xueqi, and she had the protection of the immortal Jinshin. How could she bite down? The mystical silver fox turned her head and looked at Zhou Qin coldly, as if she were looking at an ant trying to trip her with its feet. Her eyes were full of disdain. She grabbed the Vulcan's whip with her backhand and shouted, "Let go!" If it had been someone else, the powerful magical weapon would have been taken away by the mystical silver fox. However, Xueqi was extremely arrogant. When she saw the mystical silver fox looking at her with such a contemptuous gaze, and Li Jiandong was watching from the side, how could she bear it? Xueqi was similar to Li Jiandong. The more fierce her opponent was, the more violent she would be. Her fighting methods could be seen at the Taoist assembly. It was a typical method of using violence to control violence and the strong to defeat the strong. At this moment, Xueqi took a deep breath, and all the zhenqi in her body gushed out like a flood. She pulled hard with her backhand and shouted, "Come here!" The mystical silver fox didn't use all her strength to pull, but Xueqi's cultivation was not weak, and she fought with all her strength. Therefore, when the two sides competed, they immediately fought to a draw, and even the mystical silver fox's body was shaken a little. The mystical silver fox couldn't help but be shocked, and then became furious. She crazily pulled back her hand and shouted again, "Let go!" Xueqi only felt an irresistible and terrifying force. She knew that she could not resist it, but there was never the word escape in her dictionary. Even if she knew that she was going to die, she would not retreat half a step. Xueqi clenched her teeth and was ready to fight back with all her strength. But at this time, Li Jiandong, who was watching from one side, was so nervous that his heart immediately jumped to his throat. He knew that Xueqi would definitely not let go, so he appeared beside Xueqi in an instant. He grabbed the Vulcan's whip in front of her with one hand and helped her pull it hard. In terms of pure strength, Li Jiandong's strength was no less than that of the mystical silver fox. After all, he was a man with 7 treasures. This pull could have pulled the mystical silver fox over, but the Vulcan's whip could not bear the force and broke into 2 pieces with a snap. As soon as the powerful magical weapon was broken, the spiritual qi contained in the middle leaked out, and the blazing flames around it were immediately extinguished. The snake head, which had been wrapped around the wrist of the mystical silver fox, suddenly turned back into the tip of the whip. It quickly slipped down and fell to the ground. They moved as fast as lightning. Before Xueqi had time to help, they had already fought back and forth for a few rounds. When Xueqi was about to enter the battlefield, Lu Ye's Qianquan jade stick pointed at her aggressively. Xueqi had seen the power of this powerful magical weapon before. Slightly shocked, she immediately threw out the Yu Huang immortal capital in her hand without thinking. Lu Yi originally wanted to point at Xueqi's chest first and subdue her, which would also reduce the threat to the mystical silver fox. However, he didn't expect that the powerful magical weapon in Xueqi's hand could defeat all the powerful magical weapons in the world. No matter how strong the powerful magical weapon was, even the yellow Emperor Xuanyuan's sword would be exchanged when it met the Yu Huang immortal capital. Lu Yi saw that as soon as the Yu Huang immortal capital flew out, his proudest Qianquan jade stick immediately stopped in mid-air, as if it had been fixed. Even the ashes falling from the pipe stopped in mid-air, visible to the naked eye. Lu Yi didn't expect that his powerful magical weapon would be destroyed like this. He was furious and couldn't help pouncing on Xueqi. At this time, Li Jiandong's eyes widened and a Mahamudra slapped toward Lu Yi. Lu Yi didn't dare to take it head-on and immediately retreated. At this time, the Vajra Arhat, who had flown out of the magic formation set by Purin and the others, also rushed over in the blink of an eye and entangled with Lu Yi. Without the protection of magic treasures, Lu Yi had no choice but to reveal his 8-tailed fox demon body. His body was huge, like a small mountain standing in the air, entangled with these Vajra warriors, biting and tearing at each other. The fight was unbreakable. At this time, Wang Zhenyuan also took out his Yellow River 9 Bends ruler and blocked some of the attacking magic and powerful magical weapons for Lu Yi. Lu Yi was an 8-tailed fox, and his strength was extremely tyrannical. After showing his true form, his strength was almost doubled. The remaining magic and powerful magical weapons that hit him could hardly cause any damage to him. For a moment, he was facing the dense magic and powerful magical weapons of all the sects in the cultivation world of China with his own strength. At this time, the cultivation world of China had already experienced a fierce battle with the mystical silver fox. They had either suffered heavy casualties or lost all their masters. For a moment, they were neck and neck with Lu Yi and Wang Zhenyuan. Some cultivators with lower cultivation levels looked up at the sky and saw figures flashing in the sky. There were powerful magical weapons flying everywhere. The sky was colorful, especially the hands of Li Jiandong and the others and the mystical silver fox. Every move contained earth-shattering power. Every move on both sides was dangerous, which made people so nervous that they couldn't breathe. Such a level of skill was really rare in the world. They were stunned and their hearts were shaken. If it weren't for the fact that the field was too tense, they almost couldn't help cheering loudly. At this time, Li Jiandong, Zi Yuan, Zhou Qin, Su Chan, and the others launched an airtight siege on the mystical silver fox. Li Jiandong, Zi Yuan, and Zhou Qin relied on their powerful magical weapons to launch a fierce attack on the front and the left and right wings. Because Su Chan was unarmed, her only powerful magical weapon had been thrown out to exchange for the heaven and earth jade rod. She had to wander quickly and hit the mystical silver fox from time to time. She didn't show her fox demon body, so she couldn't pose a threat to the mystical silver fox. She was like a bee buzzing beside her, and from time to time, she would sting people. Although she couldn't kill people, it was very annoying. The mystical silver fox fought against 4 masters of thunder retribution alone, but she still stood firm. She was not at a disadvantage at all. Her strength really shocked everyone present and made them gasp in amazement. Zi Yuan, who was standing aside, observed the situation in the field slightly. She saw that most of the cultivators of all sects had suffered losses after the previous battle, and Lu Yi was a living army. If he continued to fight with Purin and the others, he might not suffer a loss. Especially at this time, the mystical silver fox became crazier and crazier as she fought. Her strength became more and more powerful, and the ferocious murderous aura in her eyes became more and more intense. She couldn't help but send a voice transmission to Li Jiandong and said anxiously, "Li Jiandong, it's not the way to go on fighting like this. If the mystical silver fox continues to fight like this, her chi and blood will flow at a high speed and boil violently, which will greatly accelerate the devouring and integration of Xueqi's memories and divine senses. When she completely devours Xueqi's memories and divine senses, it will be impossible for you to save her." Li Jiandong's heart sank. He quickly glanced at Zi Yuan, as if asking, "What should I do?" Zi Yuan took a deep breath and said decisively and firmly, "You control the purple gold luo pan and the sky-reaching glass mirror. The 3 of us will hold her back." Chapter 868. As soon as Zi Yuan said this idea, Li Yundong was shocked. He subconsciously wanted to shake his head, but soon Zi Yuan said to him through voice transmission, "Li Yundong, although these 2 powerful magical weapons are the most precious magical weapons of the Linggong sect, they have been repaired by you. Now they naturally have your aura. Moreover, only your strength can compete with the mystical silver fox. If I were to control these 2 powerful magical weapons, I'm afraid that I wouldn't have enough strength. At this critical moment, I can't be hesitant. I should make a prompt decision." Zi Yuan's words were spoken in a hurry. Li Yundong thought about it for a while and immediately made up his mind. He nodded to Zi Yuan calmly. The 2 of them fought with the mystical silver fox while having sex. At this time, the benefits of having powerful magical weapons were shown. If there was no powerful magical weapon in front of them, if they dared to be distracted and talk in the face of the mystical silver fox, they would probably die without knowing how. At this time, although Zi Yuan's 9th heaven Zi Yuan silk was blasted away, it only took a blink of an eye for it to fly back. The most powerful part of this powerful magical weapon was not only that it could change and attack and defend, but also that it could not be burned by fire, soaked in water, torn by hand, or cut by a knife. It was almost indestructible. When the 9th heaven Zi Yuan silk flew back again, this time it turned into a long spear. The tip of the spear was like a pear flower in a rainstorm. It sprinkled a handful of spear flowers and pointed at the heart of the mystical silver fox. It was fast, fierce, and poisonous. However, the mystical silver fox almost didn't even look at it. When the tip of the spear was about to touch her skin, she stretched out her finger and flicked hard at the tip of the spear. In an instant, the spear made of the 9th heaven Zi Yuan silk flew out again. After the 9th heaven Zi Yuan silk was shaken away, it immediately flew back and turned into another weapon, pouncing on the mystical silver fox. For a moment, these 18 weapons changed one by one. They were like a piece of sticky candy, entangling the mystical silver fox tightly. The same was true for Zhou Qin's Qihue. Zhou Qin's Vulcan's whip had been destroyed by the mystical silver fox as soon as they met, which shocked Zhou Qin. She did not dare to let the Qihue take risks easily. She was very careful to cooperate with the others to attack. Once the mystical silver fox dealt with the Bahuang sword and the Liuhe sword, or the Chokong dealt with the ninth heaven Zi Yuan silk, it would come roaring and strike the mystical silver fox like lightning. At this time, Li Jiandong took a look at the field and saw that Zi Yuan, Zhou Qin, and Su Chan seemed to have the strength to entangle the mystical silver fox for a while. He gritted his teeth and the yang spirit went out of his body in an instant. He flew to the looming celestial glass mirror in the thundercloud and used his magic to drive this powerful magic weapon. At the same time, he sat cross-legged in the air, flicking the burning thumb pot with one hand and pressing the purple gold disc with the other, doing 3 things at once. At this time, Zi Yuan also secretly transmitted her voice to Zhou Qin and Su Chan, telling them that they had to stall the mystical silver fox no matter what and buy time for Li Jiandong. Although the celestial glass mirror was a powerful magic weapon of the Linggong sect, it was not a powerful magic weapon refined by the cultivators of the Linggong sect. It was a personal magic weapon refined by Yin Zhiping of the Chuanjin sect. The Chuanjin sect was a cultivation sect that advocated the integration of Buddhism, Taoism, and Confucianism among the Chinese Taoist cultivation sects, and colored glass was one of the 7 treasures of Buddhism. Therefore, when Yin Zhiping was in Beijing, that is, Shuntian Chongnet Palace in the Yuan dynasty, he refined this supreme Taoist magic weapon with colored glass, one of the 7 treasures of Buddhism. However, when Yin Zhiping reached the golden immortal realm at the age of 70, he didn't care about the affairs of the world and passed all the magic weapons to his Li Zhichang. After Li Zhichang took over, the power of the Chuanjin sect had reached a terrifying level. The power of the sect radiated throughout the Yuan dynasty, and the Yuan dynasty's territory was so large that it was unique in ancient and modern times. The power of the Chuanjin sect radiated from Russia in the north to Vietnam and other countries in Southeast Asia. Such a large sect naturally aroused the fear of the rulers of the Yuan dynasty. However, because Li Zhichang was one of the 18 accompanying disciples of Zhanren Chongnet Chiu Chuji, who accompanied him to see Genghis Khan, he had a deep friendship with the ruling group of the Yuan dynasty. Therefore, the ruler of the Yuan dynasty, Brother Meng, waited until Li Zhichang was old and weak and had no interest in worldly affairs before he initiated a large-scale debate between Buddhism and Taoism. This debate and battle was the most far-reaching event for Chinese Buddhism and Taoist cultivators. It directly led to the decline of Chinese Taoism and the rise of Tibetan Buddhism. In this battle, because the Chuanjin sect was too powerful in the Taoist cultivation world, it also aroused the fear of other sects in the Taoist cultivation world. Therefore, no other sects supported the Chuanjin sect. Even the Zhengyi school sat on the sidelines and watched the tigers fight. In this battle, Li Zhichang brought the Tongtian glaze mirror and his disciples, Zhenren Zhang Zhijing, Barbarian Mr. Wang, Taoist record Fan Jiying, Judge Wei Jiyang, lecturer Zhou Zhili, and more than 200 people to participate in the meeting. It could be said that all the elites had come. Unfortunately, they met a person who could be compared with Wang Chongyang, Zhang Sanfeng, Zhang Daoling, and others. He was the strongest, greatest, and most amazing cultivator and great sage of Tibetan Buddhism in the past 1,000 years. Ba Siba. Ba Siba began to preach at the age of 8. At the age of 17, he took over the position of the leader of the Sakya sect of Tibetan Buddhism. At the age of 18, he went to Shuntian to see Kubilai. Kubilai brought his children to greet the 18-year-old Ba Siba with the etiquette of secular people greeting their masters. Then, they offered a large amount of gold, silver, and jewelry, asking Ba Siba to perform tantric initiation for them. When Ba Siba was 20 years old, his cultivation had reached the pinnacle. At the age of 23, he led the second living Buddha of the White sect, Karmabashi, the imperial preceptor of Hushi, monk Wei Wuer, the imperial preceptor of Dali, the elders of Shaolin Temple, the elders of Mount Wutai, and the elders of Yuanfu Temple, and more than 300 people to participate in a meeting to fight against the cultivators of the Chuanjin sect. This unprecedented debate and battle shocked the world. Both sides agreed that each sect would send 17 people to debate. If the Buddhists lost, they would become Taoists. If the Taoists lost, they would become monks. In the end, after this battle, Ba Siba almost single-handedly defeated the people of Chuanjin sect. Then, Fan Jiying and the other 17 people of Chuanjin sect were ordered by Kubilai to be sent to Longguang Temple and become monks. After this battle, Li Zhichang's celestial glazed mirror also became Ba Siba's spoils of war. After this genius, the First Nation master of the Yuan dynasty obtained this magic weapon. It was as if he had obtained a treasure. From it, he understood the mystery of space and time, life and death, and from it, he also strengthened this magic weapon based on the original foundation of the celestial glazed mirror, so that it could penetrate time and space, see through life and death, absorb souls and other magical abilities. Ba-Siba then passed away at the age of 46. Before he died, he told his disciple to return this magic treasure to the cultivators of Chuanjin sect. However, after wandering for a long time, it finally fell into the hands of the cultivators of Linggong sect, and finally became the magic treasure of Linggong sect. The magic of the azure glass mirror was innumerable, but its greatest ability was that it could borrow power from the sky and forcefully project a person's soul, spiritual sense, and even memory into the mirror. It could freely create a mirror image that was almost exactly the same as the person in the mirror. If the person in the mirror image obtained a certain ability, the original owner would lose that ability. Even if there was a certain difference in strength between the two parties, the caster could forcibly project the body and soul of the other party onto the azure glass mirror. This would not only create a new puppet, but it could also instantly take away all the soul and life of the other party, turning it from a healthy living person into a cold and terrifying skeleton in an instant. Such a magic treasure could be said to be tyrannical and domineering. However, because the leaders of the Linggong sect had been kind, they had never used this magic treasure to do anything harmful. Therefore, although this magic treasure was fierce, it was not notorious. More people only knew that it had the ability to penetrate time and space. However, although the azure glass mirror was powerful, it actually did not have any actual combat ability, because it required the caster to pour Xueqi into it for a long time and hold it. During this process, no one could interrupt it. Otherwise, all the previous efforts would be in vain. Li Yundong's young spirit held this magical Taoist treasure and shone the mirror on the mystical silver fox's body from afar. Immediately, a ray of colorful divine light shot down from it and followed the mystical silver fox closely. A figure immediately appeared on the mirror, but it was an extremely terrifying skeleton. The person outside the mirror was a lively beauty, but the person in the mirror was an extremely terrifying pink skeleton. Outside the mirror, there was one life and one death, which was full of profound meaning. Li Yundong's Xueqi quickly poured into the azure glass mirror. He saw that there were waves of colorful ripples on the edge of the mirror. The skeleton in it was affected by these ripples. Gradually, there was blood on the white bones, and then there was blood. It seemed that it was slowly turning into a mystical silver fox in the mirror. The mystical silver fox had fled to Japan during the 5 Dynasties and 10 Kingdoms period. How could she know that there was such a magic treasure in the Chinese cultivation world? She had been shown on by the divine light of the azure glass mirror. At first, although she felt a little strange, she didn't feel anything strange, so she didn't take the light seriously. But soon, she found that Li Yundong's young spirit had flown out of his body to the air to hold this powerful magic treasure. She immediately became very vigilant. Most of the powerful magic treasures had the ability to fight alone. However, if a powerful magic treasure needed a cultivator to spend a lot of time and energy to hold it, it could only mean 2 things. First, this powerful magic treasure was trash. Second, this powerful magic treasure was so powerful that it could only be fully released by a cultivator. How could the mystical silver fox believe that the powerful magic treasure in Li Yundong's hand was a trash magic treasure? She looked up with vigilance in her heart. Immediately, her eyes pierced through the heavy thunderclouds like lightning and saw a skeleton figure reflected on the spirit mirror. Gradually, the skeleton figure became full of blood. Although she still couldn't see its appearance, from the figure and the position of the environment in the spirit mirror, it was clearly the mystical silver fox herself. Although the mystical silver fox had never seen this powerful magic treasure, she was a great master who had comprehended the mysteries of Buddhism and Taoism. At a glance, she saw this situation. How could she not know what had happened? The mystical silver fox was shocked, angry, and frightened. She knew that she had half a foot in the gate of hell. If she didn't destroy this powerful magic treasure, she was afraid that she would die on this powerful magic treasure. The mystical silver fox shouted angrily and pounced on Li Yundong like crazy. At this time, Zi Yuan, Zhou Qin, and Su Chan also rushed to the mystical silver fox from 3 directions as if they didn't care about their lives. The victory or defeat of this fierce battle depended on this move. They had to stop the mystical silver fox. Otherwise, they would lose everything, and the whole cultivation world would be wiped out. As soon as the 3 of them moved, the 3 beautiful figures fought with the mystical silver fox. From a distance, they could see that the 3 of them were under the attack of the mystical silver fox's 7 golden tails. Their figures were faintly discernible, like graceful birds. Although it was a fierce and dangerous battle, it also revealed a different kind of otherworldly beauty, as if three fairies from different worlds were fighting with a big demon king. This scene was the three immortals fighting the celestial fox, which would become a good story in the cultivation world in the future and be recorded in history. Chapter 869. The mystical silver fox had lived for more than 1,000 years. It could be said that she was old but not old. When she risked her life, her power was really earth-shattering. Others only took one more look at the mystical silver fox and were overwhelmed by her amazing momentum. They couldn't imagine how Su Chan, Zi Yuan and Zhou Qin, these three beautiful girls, had the courage to stand in the way of the mystical silver fox. Although the mystical silver fox was facing three masters at the level of thunder retribution alone, in fact, she still had to divert her attention to fight against Li Yundong's other powerful magical weapon, the burning thumb pot. This was the personal magic weapon of Fa Hai in the past, and it was also the supreme magic weapon of Buddhism. In the hands of the reincarnated Wisdom King, its power was so great that it could not be underestimated. It was also a great deterrent to the mystical silver fox. Although Li Yundong's yang spirit was out of his body and he was using all his strength to control the azure glass mirror, part of his spirit was still controlling the burning thumb pot. The 5 fingers of one hand flew like a blooming lotus flower, and the lotus leaves spread out. Every time his fingertips touched the edge of the burning thumb pot, a crisp sound would be heard, and a layer of visible white light spread out of the burning thumb pot. This layer of light had a strong effect of suppressing the soul and could absorb the demonic qi. Although the mystical silver fox's zhenqi and spiritual energy were strong and solidified, it was not something that the burning thumb pot could absorb at all. However, when the layers of light rippled and moved on the body of the mystical silver fox, it also made her restless. Her blood and qi were boiling, and she could not fully drive her spiritual energy and zhenqi, so her strength was greatly reduced. If the mystical silver fox attacked Zi Yuan, Su Chan, Zhou Qin, and the others without any influence, Zi Yuan and the others would die on the spot in a few rounds. However, with the burning thumb pot on one side, Zi Yuan, Su Chan, and Zhou Qin had the space and strength to fight with the mystical silver fox. At first, Zi Yuan and Zhou Qin, one on the left and one on the right, wanted to stop the mystical silver fox with magic weapons. However, even with the help of the Bahuang sword and the Liuhe sword, if they could stop the mystical silver fox with only the 9th heaven Zi Yuan silk and the Qi Wei, the mystical silver fox would not be the mystical silver fox. You almost there, when the 7 tails of the mystical silver fox were used, these powerful magical weapons could hardly get close to her. They were blocked by the golden fox tail from a distance. However, her figure did not slow down at all. She quickly rushed toward Li Jiandong. Seeing that the situation was not good, Zi Yuan and Zhou Qin immediately chose the same way to deal with it without hesitation. Close combat. Close combat was the most dangerous way to fight with the mystical silver fox. It required great courage to fight face-to-face with the mystical silver fox. But if he wanted to fight face-to-face with the mystical silver fox in close combat, it could no longer be described as brave and fearless. It was almost the behavior of a madman, which was equivalent to courting death. The danger of close combat was indescribable in words. Zi Yuan and the others were all masters of thunder retribution. Every move they made had great power. Even if it was the mystical silver fox, if she was careless and was hit by Zi Yuan, Zhou Qin, and the others, she would be seriously injured. But similarly, if Zi Yuan and Zhou Qin were hit by the mystical silver fox in their vital parts, it would not be a matter of serious injury, but they would be directly destroyed in body and soul. Such an unequal battle led to almost no cultivators in the world who dared to fight with the mystical silver fox in close combat. Therefore, when the mystical silver fox saw Zi Yuan and Zhou Qin coming to fight with her in close combat, she was shocked. But then the mystical silver fox felt a kind of anger of being despised and offended. She was furious. Only 5 of the 7 foxtails were left to block the powerful magical weapons that besieged her. At the same time, 2 golden tails swept toward Zi Yuan and Zhou Qin. Although Zi Yuan and Zhou Qin were fast, they were not as fast as the mystical silver fox. In the blink of an eye, the 2 foxtails had rolled up in front of them. The golden fox silk on the tails stood up like steel needles, like a huge wolf's fang. It seemed that as long as it touched them, it could break people's bones and tendons. Zi Yuan and Zhou Qin were shocked in their hearts, but at this time, there was no turning back. They made up their minds and once again exerted their strength, rushing toward the front of the mystical silver fox, trying to get close to the mystical silver fox before the golden fox tail rolled up to them. Almost there. With this force, Their figures disappeared in an instant. The two of them suddenly accelerated like missiles and rushed out a few meters like lightning, making the golden foxtail roll up the air. The mystical silver fox was stunned for a moment, and then became furious. The two golden foxtails exploded with a bang, releasing countless golden threads, chasing after Ziyuan and Xueqi like a spider web. Su Chan, who was standing to one side, saw it clearly. Seeing that Ziyuan and Xueqi were about to be caught up by the golden threads, she was so frightened that she shouted no. At this time, she finally didn't care whether she would show her fox demon body or not. The little girl suddenly turned into an 8-tailed fox with fiery red fur. She used her two golden foxtails to roll toward the two golden foxtails of the mystical silver fox. The 4 golden foxtails swung together with a bang. Suddenly, countless fox silks were intertwined and tangled together. There was me in you and you in me. For a moment, it was difficult to distinguish. The mystical silver fox had never dreamed that there would be 2 golden foxtails exactly the same as hers appearing in front of her. How dare they go against her? The mystical silver fox looked at Su Chan in shock, only to see that the fiery red 8-tailed fox was glaring at her with a ferocious face. 6 fiery red foxtails were hanging low, and 2 golden foxtails were twisting and dancing, entangling with her own 2 foxtails. When the mystical silver fox was shocked, Ziyuan and Xueqi had already approached her. One of them immediately moved like smoke and immortals, circling around the mystical silver fox from top to bottom, and constantly attacking her waist and ribs with the 8 trigrams palm. The 2 waists were where the kidneys were located, where the essence of the qi and blood was stored. If they were hit here, the consequences could be imagined. The 2 ribs were where the heart and lungs were located, corresponding to the place where the qi and blood were stored and the blood was transported. Although there were ribs to protect them, they were also extremely fragile. If they were hit, the qi and blood would be unstable, and the spiritual power in Zhenqi would be greatly reduced. As the saying goes, Tai Chi is tricky, and the 8 trigrams are thieves. The most poisonous one is Xing Yi. Ziyuan cultivated the 8 trigrams palm. As soon as she used the originally extremely slippery kung fu, she immediately revealed an ethereal immortal qi. Her figure was erratic, and her hands attacked the vital parts of the mystical silver fox's waist and ribs from time to time. Her moves were exquisite, and her profound foundation and rich experience in fighting showed when she moved and jumped. Xueqi, on the other hand, was big and powerful. She had never learned any serious martial arts moves, but when her cultivation reached a certain level, all the magic and martial arts in the world were just a framework. At Xueqi's level, even a black tiger takes out the heart, was enough to break any unique skill of any martial artist. This was the so-called one man can defeat 10 men. Xueqi's personality was strong and competitive, so she rushed to the front, punching and kicking, banging her head and biting her teeth. She almost did everything she could. Not only was there no order in the close combat, but there was also no prediction. Close combat was the best way to make up for the huge gap between cultivators. Xueqi had just finished the Zhuji phase, and she had defeated a young spirit master whose strength was far higher than hers by close combat. At this time, she did the same thing and fought close to the front for a while. As the saying goes, one punch could kill an old master. For a moment, the mystical silver fox was a little busy. But when the mystical silver fox was about to kill Xueqi with her rich experience and powerful strength, Ziyuan would appear beside or behind her. Her hands would touch her ribs, or her palms would sinisterly slap her waist, so that she would have to be distracted to save her. At this time, Ziyuan and Xueqi, one was the main attacker, and the other was the support. They complemented each other like 2 tight gears, and their cooperation was almost flawless and flawless. The mystical silver fox was held back by the 2 of them. It roared angrily again and again. It wanted to drive its foxtail to kill the 2 of them, but it was entangled by Su Chan. The other 5 foxtails were entangled by several other powerful magical weapons, so it could not be divided to deal with them. At this time, the mystical silver fox finally felt that something was wrong. She felt that she was sliding down a terrible abyss uncontrollably. Her body seemed to be getting heavier and heavier, and the glass mirror of heaven in the sky seemed to be rapidly absorbing her strength and spiritual qi. At this time, the middle sun cultivators saw that the mystical silver fox had been successfully stalled by Su Chan, Ziyuan, and Xueqi. They were overjoyed, and all of them exerted their remaining strength to attack frantically. Lu Yi was shocked, and he couldn't help but want to save the mystical silver fox. But at this time, Purin and the others were also in high spirits, and the sound of chanting Buddhist scriptures became louder and louder. For a moment, the name of Xueqi shook the sky. Lu Yi and Wan Yuan were almost defeated in the face of the last attack of the Middle Sun cultivation world, whose morale was greatly boosted. If it weren't for the fact that the real body of the eight-tailed earth fox was so powerful that almost no magic and powerful magical weapon could hurt him, and the defensive effect of Wan Yuan's Yellow River Nine Bends ruler was so good, the two of them would have been smashed into powder by these countless magic and powerful magical weapons. At this time, Li Jiandong, who was in the thundercloud, was activating the glass mirror of heaven with all his might, while nervously paying attention to the situation below. He had seen Su Chan, Zi Yuan, and Zhou Qin repeatedly in danger, and he was so nervous that he wanted to jump into the field to help them. But soon, Li Jiandong was surprised to find that Su Chan had appeared behind the fox demon and blocked the two most threatening golden tails of the mystical silver fox. Zi Yuan and Zhou Qin were like silk, and with perfect cooperation, they nailed the mystical silver fox to the same place. Li Jiandong was very calm. At this time, a figure had gradually appeared in the glass mirror of heaven in his hand. It was the appearance of the mystical silver fox. She was extremely beautiful, but there was a trace of difference from the coquettish mystical silver fox. Li Jiandong saw that the mirror image of the glass mirror of heaven had been preliminarily reflected. He immediately shouted at the mystical silver fox, but it was not the name of the mystical silver fox, but another person's name. Xueqi. This loud shout, like a bolt from the blue, made the mystical silver fox tremble all over. She subconsciously looked up at the sky. There was a trace of confusion in her ferocious eyes, but Xueqi's remaining divine sense and memory were awakened by Li Jiandong at this moment. Chapter 870. Xueqi's body was occupied by the mystical silver fox. Although she was the reincarnation of the mystical silver fox, it could be said that she was a branch of the towering tree of the mystical silver fox. Although they were of the same origin, she had grown her own branches and leaves in the past 20 years. Therefore, although Xueqi only had one soul and three spirits, her memories were stored in her own life soul and divine sense. Although the mystical silver fox had occupied her body as a furnace, it had not completely digested her life soul. It had only integrated her life soul with its own heaven soul, but the memories stored in the life soul had not completely disappeared. Li Yundong's loud cry immediately awakened Xueqi's memory. In an instant, the life soul that originally belonged to Xueqi shook, and her memories surged up like a surging river and sea. She had once brushed past this fated young man in the elevator and chased after him because of her admiration for his handsome appearance. However, she did not expect that this was just the continuation of a 1,000-year ill-fated relationship. It was destined that there would be no result. Xueqi's confused eyes gradually became clear, and her blood-red eyes turned black. Her murderous and ferocious face gradually dissipated. She subconsciously raised her head and shouted in a low voice, "Li Yundong? Is that you?" As soon as she finished speaking, in an instant, the heaven soul of the mystical silver fox once again suppressed Xueqi's life soul. Her clear eyes suddenly burned again. The mystical silver fox didn't expect that her reincarnation would have such deep feelings for Li Yundong. She was so angry that she roared, "Wisdom King, you are despicable. How dare you use such a sinister and vicious method? Isn't it enough that you have deceived me for a lifetime? Do you think you can deceive me for a second life?" Li Yundong's young spirit was high in the clouds. He also shouted angrily, "Mystical silver fox, I don't know what you gave birth to in your previous life, but I only know that in this life, Xueqi is my friend. I want to save her." The mystical silver fox couldn't help laughing angrily. "What nonsense are you talking about? I am her previous life, and she is my present life. You want to save her? Save yourself first." As she spoke, she took a deep breath and couldn't help but raise her head and let out a long howl. This long roar suddenly shook the heavens and the earth. It was sharp and fierce, and the air seemed to be about to shatter. Visible ripples appeared in the surroundings. Su Chan, Zhou Qin, and Zi Yuan suddenly felt as if their eardrums had been stabbed with a sharp knife. The three of them screamed at the same time and subconsciously covered their ears with their eyes closed, not daring to let go of the roar. You almost there, at this time, from a distance, the thunderclouds in Su Ye's sky were constantly rolling because of the sharp howl, and they were slowly scattered. Countless visible airwaves on the mountain range spread in all directions with the mystical silver fox as the center. Many cultivators in the cultivation world of the Middle Sun were shaken by this sharp roar and spat out a mouthful of blood. Some of them even spat out a mouthful of blood, but their internal organs had been shattered by the mystical silver fox. Even a master at Liu Ye's level couldn't help but frown. He covered his chest with his hand and gritted his teeth. Li Yundong had been sitting upright in the thunderclouds, and his figure was vaguely visible because of the thunderclouds. At this time, the mystical silver fox let out a sharp roar, and his figure suddenly appeared. The glass mirror of heaven in his hand was also trembling violently, and there was a cracking sound on the surface of the mirror. Li Yundong was shocked. He didn't expect that the mystical silver fox's roar would be so powerful that it could shatter the glass mirror of heaven in his hand from such a distance. However, he didn't expect that the mystical silver fox had sneaked into Mount Wutai to secretly learn the Vajra Buddhist Dharma. Mount Wutai was the holy land of Buddhism in China, and its status was similar to that of Mount Longhu of Taoism. There were a lot of scriptures here, and the mystical silver fox had secretly learned a lot of Buddhist unique skills. After that, she had eliminated those that were not very helpful to her in the constant fighting, and only kept a few methods that could fight against many enemies and were extremely lethal. One of them was the unique skill of Buddhism: lion's roar. According to the Buddhist scriptures, when the Buddha Lord was born, he pointed to the sky with one hand and the earth with the other. He roared like a lion and said, "I am the only one in the world." The Sutra of Vimalakirti and the Buddhist kingdom also said, "It's meaningless to perform the Dharma, like a lion's roar." What he said was like thunder. The lion's roar represented the Tathagata, which could destroy all obstacles and subdue all devils. It was almost there. The mystical silver fox was a fox demon. Originally, she could not practice this kind of Buddhist magic. However, she had obtained the pure yang qi of Hui Fa. Therefore, the Buddhist magic in the world was no longer difficult for her. Even the lion's roar, which was specially used to deal with demons, had been cultivated by her. It had become a trump card and a killing skill. Many times, she had been besieged by people. At the critical moment of life and death, she had relied on this earth-shattering lion's roar to change the situation and turn defeat into victory. Because no one had expected that the lion's roar made by a fox demon would be so terrifying, Li Yundong's heart was shaken by the roar of the mystical silver fox. His qi and blood were rolling, and he almost fell from the clouds. The spiritual mirror in his hand was creaking louder and louder, and there were cracks on the edge of the mirror, as if it was going to shatter in the next second. Li Yundong gritted his teeth and took a deep breath. A vast and powerful qi went straight through his dantian, and then it rushed to the canopy, rushed to the divine court, and went to the spiritual platform. Like a clear stream, it poured into Li Yundong's whole body. Li Yundong calmed down and thought about it. The yang spirit protected the sky-reaching glass mirror, but his divine sense returned to his body. He flicked the burning thumb pot with one hand and made a crisp sound. At the same time, he said in a clear voice, "The Mahayana scriptures of Buddhism say that human immortals don't use the small multiplication method, earth immortals don't use the middle multiplication method, and immortals don't use the Mahayana method. In fact, the number of 3 multiplication is only 1. It's not difficult to seek the Tao with the Dharma. It's also very easy to seek the immortal with the Tao. For example, when the lion roars, all the insects are afraid, but the gods and Buddhas are unmoved." At this time, he also mobilized his zhenqi and chanted loudly. Although Li Yundong had never practiced the lion's roar, the so-called lion's roar originally referred to the voice of Buddha of the Buddha. Li Yundong was the immovable wisdom king evolved from the angry consciousness of Buddha. His loud shout was the authentic lion's roar. Everyone felt that the lion's roar of the mystical silver fox was heart-stirring and touching. It shook them so much that they almost exploded. Their internal organs were in turmoil, and their divine senses were a little blurred, let alone resisting. As soon as Li Yundong's lion's roar came out, it immediately offset the lion's roar of the mystical silver fox. It was like a high mountain connecting the sky and the earth, blocking the roar and roar. At this time, everyone suddenly came to their senses. When they looked around, they were horrified to find that a large number of people had fallen to the ground. Many cultivators were kneeling on the ground and vomiting blood in pain. The ones who suffered the most were the cultivators from the various sects in the Japanese cultivation world. They cultivated their minds, not their lives, so there was no way they could withstand the devastation of the lion's roar. 7 out of 10 were knocked to the ground, and 2 out of the remaining 3 were shaken to the ground. The last 10% were top-notch experts like Ise Shinkuin and Ise Izumo. Even so, their faces were as white as paper. Li Yundong's lion's roar made the mystical silver fox's fatal attack fail. After the mystical silver fox let out a sharp roar, her spiritual power and Xueqi were also greatly consumed. At this time, the blue veins on her neck were bulging, and the blue veins on her forehead and ears were also jumping. It was a sign that her blood was rushing to the extreme. The mystical silver fox almost knocked everyone on the field to the ground, but in the end, she failed. She looked at Li Yundong angrily and almost wanted to tear him to pieces. Although the lion's roar was powerful, it consumed a lot of spiritual power and Xueqi. Even a top master like the mystical silver fox, whose spiritual power was endless, could not bear it. The mystical silver fox stopped in mid-air, panting violently. Su Chan, Zi Yuan, and Zhou Qin, who were next to her, were not much better. The little girl had been shaken back to her original form. At this time, she was in so much pain that her body almost shrank into a ball. Zi Yuan and Zhou Qin were also trembling in mid-air. Their hands and feet were numb, and they could hardly move. Even the 2 masters of lightning retribution were like this, not to mention the others. Although the mystical silver fox showed fatigue and flaws at this time, no one on the field could seize this opportunity to give her a fatal blow. Li Yundong had used the lion's roar to resist the attack of the mystical silver fox, and he had also consumed a lot of spiritual power and Xueqi. Especially at this time, his body was also numb from the shock and he couldn't move. He had to transfer his divine sense to the Yang spirit again, and control his Yang spirit to continue pouring spiritual power and Xueqi into the glass mirror of heaven. The glass mirror of heaven had been shaken by the mystical silver fox before, and the image that had been condensed had also dissipated. At this time, it condensed again and slowly reflected the figure of Xueqi. The mystical silver fox was shocked when she saw this. She wanted to go forward, but the qi in her body was too weak. She had consumed too much spiritual power, and the flames in her eyes had become much weaker. She was afraid that after she rushed over, she would be injured by Li Yundong's other powerful magical weapons or magic, so she had to grit her teeth and endure it, desperately trying to recover her spiritual power and Xueqi. At this moment, both sides had reached the last moment, as if 2 boxers who had been exhausted from fighting were accumulating their strength to give each other the last blow. At this time, the glass mirror of heaven in Li Yundong's hand slowly shone out a ray of colorful divine light again, hitting the body of the mystical silver fox from above. Li Yundong shouted, "Xueqi!" The mystical silver fox's whole body shook, but this time she was prepared. She didn't let Xueqi's life soul wake up again. She just gritted her teeth and sneered, "Reincarnated Wisdom King, do you want to take my soul like this? In your dreams." As she spoke, she quickly pinched her fingers and prepared to fight against the soul-sucking power of this powerful magical weapon. At this time, although Ding Nan, who was watching from a distance, was also shocked to the point of numbness and couldn't move, she thought to herself, "If I call the name of the mystical silver fox again at this time, what will happen?" This idea emerged from the bottom of her heart, but she could no longer suppress it for a moment. Although the sneak attack had almost killed Ding Nan, she saw that Li Yundong and the mystical silver fox were fighting in the Tianwang mountain, and even Zhou Qin was extremely dazzling in the field, but she was watching from the sidelines. She was extremely unwilling. The strong jealousy and hatred made Ding Nan forget about life and death for a moment. Her fingers shrank slightly, and she once again grasped the Hell Wuzhong in her sleeve. Once again, a gloomy and cold power came from her fingertips. Ding Nan took a deep breath and shouted with all her strength, "Mystical silver fox!" In an instant, the terrifying ghost in the Hell 5 feet enchanting spirit roared out again and pounced on the mystical silver fox with mystical luck. Chapter 871. Ding Nan's shout seemed to come without warning, which caught everyone off guard. At this moment, Hell Wuzhong showed its sinister viciousness to the fullest. When the mystical silver fox's power was at its peak, she would be paralyzed by this terrifying vengeful spirit for a while, not to mention that her power was greatly reduced now. At this time, everyone had no power to fight back. They watched helplessly as Li Jiandong and the mystical silver fox confronted each other. Only Ding Nan suddenly emerged and rushed out. In an instant, everyone widened their eyes and watched the evil spirit and vengeful spirit pounce on the mystical silver fox. They were so nervous that they couldn't breathe. Many people in the Chinese cultivation world hated and feared this powerful magical weapon. They only felt that this powerful magical weapon was sinister and vicious. But at this moment, they wished that this powerful magical weapon was as strong as possible. It would be best if it could kill the mystical silver fox in an instant. At this time, all the strength of the mystical silver fox was used to fight against the glass mirror of heaven. How could she have the strength to deal with the hell wuzhong? The mystical silver fox watched the black fog rushing toward her, but she was hit by the colorful divine light of the glass mirror of heaven. For a moment, she couldn't move. A thought suddenly flashed through her mind, and she couldn't help thinking, could it be that I, the mystical silver fox, have been dominating the world all my life, but I will die here today? No, I can't die here. Give me a little more time. The mystical silver fox was frantically adjusting her qi and blood in her body. She saw the ferocious faces of the evil ghosts and vengeful spirits in the black fog. In the blink of an eye, she could clearly see their gray eyes and terrifying bloody mouths. The mystical silver fox watched the hell wuzhong pounce on her. The qi and blood in her body were still a few seconds away from being adjusted. She could be inspired to fight back. However, Ding Nan seized these crucial seconds and almost gave the mystical silver fox a fatal blow. Seeing that the black fog was about to enter the body of the mystical silver fox, everyone was about to cheer. But at this moment, a figure appeared in front of the mystical silver fox like lightning. It was Lu Yi, the eight-tailed fox. The mystical silver fox was all Lu Ye's hope. He had worked hard all his life to let the mystical silver fox realize his dream for him. Therefore, he would rather die himself than see the mystical silver fox die. At this time, Lu Yi disregarded his own safety and stood in front of the enchanting vengeful spirit. At the same time, his 8 huge cyan fox tails swept towards the sky, blocking the rainbow light of the sky-piercing glass mirror. The 7-colored divine light on the body of the mystical silver fox disappeared in an instant. She immediately broke free from the cage and dived into the deep sea like a flood dragon. Her qi and blood began to boil crazily again. Lu Yi was instantly pounced on by the ghost, and his whole body stiffened. His fox demon body was illuminated by the 7-colored divine light, and immediately his cyan skin made a sizzling sound. He screamed, and his whole body trembled in pain. He curled up into a ball and fell from the sky. The mystical silver fox regained her ability to move again. In an instant, she turned into a ray of cyan light and pounced on Ding Nan. This time, she was determined to kill Ding Nan and cut off future troubles. But as soon as she moved, she saw that Li Yundong had once again activated the glass mirror of heaven and shone the colorful divine light on her body. She immediately stopped moving and slowed down a lot. It was this delay that gave Ding Nan time to react. She had been chased by the mystical silver fox before. The speed of the opponent was so fast that she didn't even have time to resist with talismans. As a result, there was no room or space for her other Taoist supreme magic treasure to be used at all. At this time, Ding Nan immediately took out the talisman in her hand and threw it forward. With a muffled sound, a yellow talisman was stuck in the air between the crowd, floating in the air. There was a golden ancient script on the talisman. Escape. This was the talisman written by Gu Hong, the personal magic treasure of the Taoist alchemy tripod sect. Ding Nan took part in such a battle. Naturally, it was impossible for her not to make good use of this heritage that Zhang Yuan had snatched from the tiger's mouth. She had prepared a series of talismans and carried them with her long ago, waiting for the critical moment to use them. However, she underestimated the strength of the mystical silver fox. The speed of this great devil, who had dominated the cultivation world of the Middle Sun, was so fast that she didn't even have time to take out a talisman, let alone throw it out. The talismans written by the immortal pen were not only powerful, but also varied. Although only one word could be written on a talisman, if it was used skillfully, it would have unimaginable effects. As soon as Ding Nan threw out the escaped talisman, her figure immediately disappeared in the air, as if she had used the goddess Nyan seal. She disappeared everywhere. The mystical silver fox was stunned for a moment, but she immediately sneered and pinched her fingers together. The index finger and middle finger of her right hand were put together, making a sword finger. She pointed to her forehead and shouted, "Heavenly eye, open!" In an instant, a crack appeared on her forehead, and a horizontal eye appeared in it. This eye's gaze was sharp, and as it swept across the empty void, it immediately shot out a sharp green light, illuminating Ding Nan's figure. At this time, Ding Nan was quickly fleeing to where Li Yundong was. At this time, she also saw that staying with this group of cultivators from various sects in the cultivation world of the Middle Sun was completely unreliable. There was no sense of security at all. If Zhou Chong and Wang Yuanshan were still there, they might be able to save her life. But at this time, the only one who could save her was the man she loved and hated, Super Battler Li. The difference between her and Zhou Qin was that Zhou Qin was not afraid of death, but she was very afraid of death, because she knew that once she died in the battle here, how could she prove herself to Li Yundong in the future and trample on Zhou Qin? Zhou Qin was a sentimental person, and sentimental people often did not care about life and death, but only valued feelings. Ding Nan was an ambitious person. From the fact that she had always been by Zhou Qin's side and used her power to get what she needed, it could be seen that she had a personality. The more ambitious people in the world were, the more afraid they were of death, because they were afraid that after they died, their plans and ambitions would not be realized. Therefore, Ding Nan was very, very afraid of death. As long as there was a chance of survival, she would not easily say death. In the middle of the journey, Ding Nan was illuminated by the mystical silver fox. In an instant, she felt a chill all over her body and a chill in her heart. A strong wind came straight from behind her. She was shocked and turned around abruptly, only to see the mystical silver fox pouncing on her fiercely. This shock only scared Ding Nan out of her wits. She immediately threw out all the talismans she had hidden. For a moment, dozens of talismans were pasted in front of her. On them were written thunder, lightning, wind, fire, stone, sword, and so on. The territory of Japan was small and narrow, so there were few powerful magical treasures. Whether it was Shintoism or Buddhism in the cultivation world, they all took a step back. If they couldn't play with powerful magical treasures, then they would play with talismans. This thing could be played even in the barren desert. It was most suitable for cultivators like them who had few resources. Therefore, the cultivation sects in Japan were all experts in playing with talismans. In terms of talismans alone, they were not inferior to the Maoshan sect, the Chuanjin sect, the Zhengyi school, and other sections. But even so, they had never seen anyone who could throw out dozens of talismans in one breath. Although talismans were easier to make than powerful magical treasures, it took a lot of time, energy, magic power, and zhenqi. When drawing talismans, not only did a large amount of magic power and zhenqi need to be poured into it, but the precise runes and patterns on it could not have the slightest mistake. Otherwise, it would cause the talismans to explode and the power backfire. The use of talismans was simple, convenient, and fast. Even cultivators with low cultivation quotients could use powerful talismans. Unlike powerful magical treasures, if the strength of cultivators was low, the power of powerful magical treasures would be relatively low. Sometimes, a well-used talisman could save a life or turn the tide of a battle. Therefore, a top-grade talisman drawn by a good cultivator could be sold at an astonishing price in the cultivation world. Japanese cultivators were proficient in playing with talismans. They had seen with their own eyes that any of the talismans Ding Nan had thrown out was of the highest quality, and could even be sold for hundreds of millions of yen in Japan. At this time, she had thrown out dozens of talismans in one breath, which really made their eyes pop out. Were all Chinese cultivators so rich? Not only did they have a lot of powerful magical treasures, but they also threw out talismans as if they were free. They threw them in bundles. The Japanese cultivators sucked in a breath of cold air. They saw that the magic burst out of the talismans in the air was like a storm, as if dozens of cultivation masters were practicing magic at the same time. The explosion shook the sky and the earth. There were flames, falling stones, strong winds, flying swords, thunder, and lightning everywhere in the air. There were so many magic spells that it made people's eyes blur. If it had been any of them, they would have died at this time. There was no suspense. Even the faces of Ise Shunguang, Ise Chuyun, and the others were as pale as paper. They looked at Ding Nan with their mouths agape. They could not imagine that this woman had so many amazing talismans hidden in her body. However, although these magic spells were powerful, they were useless against the mystical silver fox. The mystical silver fox roared like a lion and forced Su Chan to return to her human form. Her fox tail retracted, and her body regained its freedom. At this time, her 7 foxtails once again covered her whole body tightly. She forcibly passed through the strong wind, one stone, sea of fire, sword rain, and thunder and lightning without any damage. Ding Nan panicked for a moment and threw out all the talismans. At this time, she was almost bare-handed. She held the Hell Wuzhong enchantment sword tightly and wanted to shout, but she saw the mystical silver fox flicking her finger in the foxtail barrier. A golden thread popped out and pierced her chest like a flying needle. Ding Nan was in so much pain that her whole body turned cold. Not to mention the name of the mystical silver fox, she didn't even have the strength to shout. At this time, the mystical silver fox instantly pounced on her face and slapped the top of her head with her palm. She shouted, "Give me your life!" Ding Nan looked at the overwhelming palm in horror. She couldn't help thinking, I didn't expect that my shout would kill me and break my soul. There was another chapter at about 10 o'clock. Chapter 872. Ding Nan saw that the palm was about to hit her head. Suddenly, a strong wind came from behind her. A few rays of green light flashed past her and went straight to the mystical silver fox. These rays of green light were the Xueqi and the ninth heaven Yuan silk. Ding Nan saw that the two powerful magical weapons were entangled with the mystical silver fox, causing her to pause and stop moving. She was stunned because she was very familiar with the Xueqi. It was the powerful magical weapon that Li Jiandong had passed on to Xueqi. At this time, Ding Nan's clothes were pulled by someone behind her, and she was immediately pulled back. A familiar voice came to her ears. "What are you waiting for? Why don't you go?" Ding Nan didn't even need to look back to know who this person was. She waited until her body was not far from Li Yundong's side before she struggled violently, gritted her teeth, and glared at Xueqi. "You don't need to pretend to be a good person." Although Xueqi had a lot of grudges with Ding Nan, at this time, in front of a powerful enemy, she had put aside her resentment. She had only done it out of sympathy and kindness. She couldn't bear to see Ding Nan, who was both her classmate and a cultivator of the same Tao, die here, so she helped her. However, she hadn't expected that Ding Nan would not appreciate it and instead speak ill of her. Xueqi couldn't help but be furious. She also glared back with her eyebrows raised. "You don't appreciate it? Well, if you have the ability, go up and die." Ding Nan said angrily, "How I die is my business, but you don't have to meddle in other people's business." Xueqi didn't expect that her kindness would provoke such words. She was so angry that she gritted her teeth and the blue veins on her forehead bulged. She just wanted to settle the grudges between them here and now. Su Chan, who was standing to one side, was so anxious that she stamped her feet and shouted, "What time is it? Are you still arguing about these things here?" Xueqi and Ding Nan glared at each other, snorted angrily, and turned their heads. At this time, Yuan also saw that the mystical silver fox had broken through the barrier of the powerful magical weapon and pounced on them again. At this time, many cultivators in the cultivation world of the Middle Sun had also recovered their breath and attacked the mystical silver fox again. The mystical silver fox was hit by the colorful divine light of the glass mirror of heaven. For a moment, her strength was greatly reduced, but she was a little angry because of the entanglement of the crowd. Although her 7 foxtails could still protect her tightly and keep her unharmed, her momentum was greatly slowed down. Yuan turned her head and said quickly in a deep voice, "Ding Nan, do you have your immortal pen with you?" Ding Nan froze for a moment, then asked warily, "What are you doing?" Xueqi sneered and said, "Do you think we want to rob you?" Yuan quickly glanced at Xueqi, signaling her not to speak. Xueqi snorted in a low voice and turned her head away. Yuan said to Ding Nan seriously, "You use the immortal pen to cast a spell to sneak attack the mystical silver fox. We'll go install the mystical silver fox." As she spoke, she didn't wait for Ding Nan to agree. She winked at Xueqi and Su Chan, and the 3 of them rushed over again with a roar. Ding Nan saw that the 3 of them and the mystical silver fox were entangled in a ball again. At this time, Lu Yi and Wan Zhenyuan were also nowhere to be seen. When the cultivation world of the Middle Sun saw that they were fighting in close combat, it was not good for them to use powerful magical weapons and magic. They all watched them helplessly. Ding Nan knew that it was a good time for her to show off her skills. She gritted her teeth and quickly took out the immortal pen from her sleeve. She mobilized her zhenqi and poured it into the immortal pen. She slowly wrote a word in the air. "Fix." She used the pen slowly, and every stroke seemed to be sloppy. There seemed to be a mountain on her arm, which had the power of thousands of kilograms. As soon as she wrote the word "fix," she immediately pointed at the mystical silver fox and shouted angrily, "Fix." This was a temporary body-fixing charm. The mystical silver fox only felt that her body was numb, and then the chi in her body seemed to freeze in an instant. This shock was not small, and the mystical silver fox was immediately shocked and angry. Although this could not cause a fatal blow to her, under the joint attack of Su Chan, Zi Yuan, and Zhou Qin, it was enough to make her unable to move. At this time, her figure was condensed in the glass mirror of heaven controlled by Li Jiandong. In her anxiety and anger, she made the last crazy counterattack. A centipede died but did not fall down. Even a trapped beast would still fight, not to mention the crazy counterattack of the mystical silver fox. For a moment, Zi Yuan, Su Chan, Zhou Qin, and the others were unable to get close. Ding Nan knew that ordinary talisman magic did not have a good effect on the mystical silver fox, but this kind of body-fixing charm, which was not directly lethal, had some interference to her, so she wrote 3 body-fixing charms in a row. However, after writing these 3 body-fixing charms, she was so tired that she was sweating profusely, as if she had collapsed. The most taboo for cultivators was to sweat a lot. At this time the pores of the human body would open, and the primordial qi in the body would pour out uncontrollably, which was a sign of serious injury. Moreover, what did cultivators cultivate? In addition to the internal organs, it was the ability to control the opening and closing of the pores of the human body. The reason why cultivators could punch out with amazing power was that they could close the pores of their whole body, and then open the pores on their fists. They could gather their zhenqi and spiritual energy on the fists, and then punch out with great force. The pressure was so great that ordinary people could not imagine. If a cultivator's pores were wide open, it meant that he had reached the stage of overdrawing. He could not control the opening and closing of the pores, and was no longer a leakless body. Although the immortal pen was powerful, every time it wrote a talisman, it would consume a lot of energy and zhenqi. If it had been in the past, Ding Nan would have been exhausted before she could write a single talisman. Now she could barely write 3, which was already her limit. She was panting violently. When she wanted to write the 4th talisman, she couldn't even lift her arms. Her muscles were so sore that it seemed like they were about to explode. At this time, Ding Nan heard a gentle voice coming from beside her. "Ding Nan, can you lend me the immortal pen?" Ding Nan turned her face and saw that Li Yundong was looking at her with a smile. Although the situation on the field was critical, his eyes were still calm, and his expression was as calm as usual. Ding Nan looked at this handsome face, and for a moment, countless images flashed through her mind. The scenes in school, Mount Tianlong, the Taoist assembly, and Mount Longhu quickly flashed before her eyes. This boy was so familiar to her, and he was so close to her, but at this time, he seemed to be separated from her by a natural chasm and far away. This kind of feeling, as if it had been a lifetime ago, made Ding Nan stunned for a moment. She stared at Li Yundong blankly and did not respond. Li Yundong seemed to know what she was thinking and said gently, "Everything that happened in the past is just a fleeting cloud. Ding Nan, you are possessed." Li Yundong's voice contained the power of Buddha, as if Buddha was shouting at her. Ding Nan's whole body trembled. She looked at Li Yundong with a complicated look in her eyes and bit her lip. After hesitating for a long time, she handed the immortal pen in her hand to Li Yundong and said in a low voice, "This was snatched by Zhang Yuan at the Taoist assembly. It should have been yours." Li Yundong chuckled and said, "Don't worry, I'm just borrowing it. I won't snatch your powerful magical weapon." As he said this, he turned around and quickly used the immortal pen to write talismans in front of him. Li Yundong's zhenqi was much stronger than Ding Nan's. Although Ding Nan cultivated the combination of yin and yang qi between heaven and earth, her cultivation was still shallow and could not compare to Li Yundong's. Ding Nan's arms were heavy when she used the immortal pen, but Li Yundong was very familiar with it. Although the words he wrote were extremely ugly, he wrote one talisman after another without any gap in between. Ding Nan watched from the side and secretly admired him. She couldn't help but look at Li Yundong and think to herself, "I can't imagine that the otaku on campus has become so powerful now. I don't know how he cultivated. Could it be that the reincarnated Wisdom King was born so powerful? But if he was born so powerful, why did he seem so incompetent before?" Ding Nan was lost in her thoughts. Although her eyes were watching the battle, her thoughts had already flown far away. At this time, with the immortal pen in his hand, Li Yundong was like a tiger with wings. He controlled the burning thumb pot with one hand and the immortal pen with the other. His young spirit was controlling the sky-reaching glass mirror. At the same time, the Bahuang sword and the Liuhe sword were constantly attacking from both sides. His attack alone was really like a net. After Ding Nan came to her senses, She secretly adjusted her qi, closed all the pores in her body, and found the opportunity to use the sinister and vicious Hell Wuzhong soul hook on the mystical silver fox. This time, the powerful attack finally made the mystical silver fox unable to bear it. No matter how strong she was, she could not face so many powerful magical weapons and so many Jinshin and Thunder Retribution Masters by herself. In addition, there was a reincarnated Wisdom King next to her, whose strength was only a little lower than hers. The addition of Ding Nan was like a feather added to the overwhelmed mystical silver fox. The mystical silver fox finally collapsed. Under this rolling attack, the heart of the mystical silver fox became more and more heavy and cold. She felt that the colorful divine light shining on her body was getting hotter and hotter, and the qi and blood in her body were gradually out of control. Even some of the memories belonging to Xueqi would come up, and some scenes of the past would pass in front of her eyes inexplicably. The mystical silver fox was almost desperate. She thought to herself, if my soul is complete and I have the real body of a heavenly fox, how can I be defeated by you? Thinking of this, her heart suddenly moved, and she couldn't help looking at Su Chan. Then she suddenly seemed to think of something. She turned her head and looked at the sky-reaching glass mirror and the purple gold luo pan in the sky. At this time, Li Yundong, who was controlling the sky-reaching glass mirror, shouted, Xueqi. At this time, the mystical silver fox was already an arrow at the end of its flight. Her whole body shook and she roared. A cloud of green mist suddenly rose from her body, but her soul was forcibly pulled out. The sky-reaching glass mirror had the power to project all the blood and soul of the opponent. However, if Li Yundong projected all the blood and soul of the mystical silver fox, it would definitely destroy Xueqi's body and soul consciousness. It was equivalent to Xueqi and the mystical silver fox perishing together. Therefore, he only planned to use the power of the sky-reaching glass mirror to project Xueqi's soul first, and then use the ability of the purple gold luopan to create a small world out of thin air to hide Xueqi's soul in it first. After he went back, he would find a way to revive Xueqi. At this time, there was indeed a wisp of white smoke in the soul of the mystical silver fox. It was separated from the cyan soul and flew towards the sky-reaching glass mirror. On the way, Li Yundong turned the mirror over and shone it at the purple gold luo pan. Xueqi's divine sense and soul quickly flew towards the purple gold luo pan along the colorful divine light. But at this moment, the young spirit of the mystical silver fox immediately let out a sharp howl and rushed towards the purple gold luo pan. Chapter 873. Seeing that Li Yundong had used the 4 magic treasures at the same time, and with the cooperation of Su Chan, Zi Yuan, Zhou Qin, and Ding Nan, the cultivators of the Middle Sun sect finally separated the soul of the mystical silver fox. Soon. But they didn't expect that the mystical silver fox was indeed the most powerful demon fox in thousands of years. She was skilled and bold. At this moment, she showed unparalleled observation and decision-making ability. The mystical silver fox had never seen a magic treasure like the glass mirror of heaven. She didn't know that this magic treasure had the ability to penetrate time and space after being refined by Li Zhichang of the Taoist Chuanjin sect and Ba Siba of the Sakya sect. However, when she saw that her 1 soul and 3 spirits were pulled out of her body, she made up her mind and threw her young spirit and soul into the mirror. She was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, she caught up with Xueqi's soul again. She wrapped her soul and rushed straight into the purple gold luo pan along the colorful divine light of the glass mirror of heaven. It was also the first time that Li Yundong had used this magic treasure. He didn't expect that the mystical silver fox would be so bold. She decisively gave up her body as a tripod and was unwilling to give up her other soul and 3 spirits. She would rather fly into her magic treasure than let her soul be completely separated. At this moment, Li Yundong immediately faced a very serious question. Should he stop the glass mirror of heaven immediately, or should he let the mystical silver fox fly into the purple gold luo pan with Xueqi's soul? If he stopped the glass mirror of heaven, all his previous efforts would be in vain. The mystical silver fox would definitely escape in a while. At that time, it would be as difficult as ascending to heaven to find her again. Xueqi would be completely hopeless. However, if he didn't stop the glass mirror of heaven, the soul of the mystical silver fox would fly into the purple gold luo disc, which meant that he had found a refuge with Xueqi's soul. If he wanted to find her again, he would have to enter the small spirit world in the purple gold luo disc. At that time, he really didn't know what would happen. Li Yundong only hesitated for a moment, and the soul of the mystical silver fox had already drilled into the purple-gold luo pan like lightning. For a moment, the soul of the mystical silver fox disappeared, leaving only the colorful divine light of the sky-reaching glass mirror shining directly on the purple-gold luo pan. The golden lines on the purple-gold luo pan were constantly flowing with colorful light. This bright-colored light was like a sky full of multicolored light brought by the gods descending to the world. It was so bright that it could be clearly seen from dozens of kilometers away. It was magnificent and magnificent. You almost there, for a moment, everyone was stunned by the light all over the sky. It took them a long time to react. Where is the mystical silver fox? Is she dead? Everything that happened just now happened in the time it takes for a spark to fly off a flint. Some of the weaker cultivators didn't even clearly see what happened. All they saw was a flash of white light and a flash of green light, followed by a colorful glow that filled the sky, illuminating the ground with a myriad of colors. It was as if the ground was covered with a colorful carpet. Only a few cultivators with high cultivation quotients were faintly visible. The mystical silver fox with mystical fortune seemed to have gone into the violet gold, plate-like magic weapon that was constantly rotating. The Linggong sect had been in a great decline. Among the three great magic treasures of the sect, only the Bahuang and Liuhe sword was famous all over the world. Most of the other two magic treasures were not well known. Many people in the Chinese cultivation world did not know the origin of these two magic treasures, not to mention the cultivators of various sects in Japan. At this time, Aisa Chuyun saw it clearly. She couldn't help but widen her eyes. She said to Ise Shenguang beside her, "The mystical silver fox. Has it been sealed?" In the eyes of the Japanese, the soul of the mystical silver fox had been sucked into this magic weapon by Li Jiandong. The fact that Lord Battler could do this meant that he was confident in sealing this big demon. They were all scared by the mystical silver fox. They didn't expect to be able to completely destroy this terrible devil. As long as someone could seal her, it would be fine. As for when she would be released, they didn't think about it for the time being. The last time they sealed her, they had sealed her for 900 years. This time, even if the time was a little shorter, they would have to seal her for at least 100 or 80 years, right? As for what would happen after 100 or 80 years, they would have already ascended to heaven and become Buddhas. Who would care about it? Emperor Louis XV of France said, "Well, after I die, who cares about the flood? 900 years ago, what did our seniors do? If they had done their duty a little more, would the Japanese cultivation world have suffered such a disaster today and so many people have died? What the F***ck was that?" Ise Shenguang was also a little confused. He looked at the purple-gold luo pan in front of Li Jiandong in bewilderment and felt that this powerful magic weapon was not a powerful sealing magic weapon, but he didn't dare to question it. Therefore he looked at Esichian helplessly and told her with his eyes, "I don't understand either. Don't ask me." Although he had the style of a normal person, he wouldn't admit that he didn't understand such a thing in public. Otherwise, in the future, other sects would take advantage of it and say that the Ise Shinto was bad. If the great priest didn't even understand this, then it wouldn't just be his reputation that would be damaged. His silence made Sikian mutter in a low voice, "It's strange. Is she sealed or not?" Ise Izumo was an extremely rare beauty in the cultivation world. She usually looked like an iceberg, but at this time, after a series of battles, the iceberg was showing signs of melting. The way she gritted her teeth made her look a little more human. Some of the cultivators who admired her couldn't help but stand up and say, "Lord Izumo, please don't worry. I'll know once I ask." As he said this, the man began to talk loudly to Li Jiandong. He was probably asking, "Boss, have you sealed the mystical silver fox? What the hell is going on now?" But he didn't expect that Li Jiandong was also dumbfounded at this time. However, his cultivation realm was already extremely high at this time. When he was dumbfounded in his heart, there was no expression on his face. He couldn't tell whether he was happy, angry, sad or happy at all, let alone this inexplicable surprise. Li Jiandong was a little stunned. He didn't know what was going on at the moment. The soul of the mystical silver fox and Xueqi had entered the purple-gold luo pan together. What should he do? Should he chase after them? If the young spirit chased after them, what should he do with his body? How could he bring his body in? If he chased after them and was killed by the mystical silver fox, what should he do? Li Jiandong stood there in a daze, unable to make a sound for a while. Su Chan, Zi Yuan, and Zhou Qin looked at each other in dismay. Ding Nan couldn't help swallowing her saliva and asked, Li Jiandong, what's going on now? As soon as she finished speaking, someone from the Japanese on the opposite hill spoke loudly to Li Jiandong. Li Jiandong tilted his head. Although his expression remained the same, his eyes were a little strange as he said to Zi Yuan, What did they say? Zi Yuan also frowned secretly. After translating the words, Li Jiandong thought for a moment and said, Tell them that the mystical silver fox has been sealed. Zi Yuan was stunned. Then she wanted to say something, but she held back when the words were on the tip of her tongue. She looked like she wanted to say something but hesitated. Li Jiandong glanced at her and said, I know what you want to say, but now is not the time to talk about it. The soul of the mystical silver fox has been sealed in the purple gold luo pan. As long as we keep an eye on this powerful magical weapon, I think she won't be able to escape in a short time. After Xueqi and the soul of the mystical silver fox left one after another, Su Chan quickly flew to the side of Xueqi's body and caught her body, lest the body, which had lost its spiritual power, Zhenqi, soul and yang spirit, fall down and smash into pieces. That would not be good. She hugged Xueqi and said in a low voice, Yundong, let's take President Chao's body back first. We'll think of a way when we get back. Li Jiandong glanced at her and nodded with a smile. Zi Yuan sighed in her heart. Although this battle was not unprecedented, it was also a rare battle in the cultivation world in the past 100 years. The cultivation world of China and Japan had suffered heavy losses. In particular, this fierce battle had come to an abrupt end, which made people a little confused. Moreover, it had not been able to fully control the mystical silver fox. Although her soul had been separated from her body and her strength had been greatly damaged, she had taken Xueqi's body and hidden it in the purple gold luo pan, the powerful magical weapon. Zi Yuan shook her head secretly. She turned her head and said Li Jiandong's words in fluent Japanese to the cultivators of all sects in the Japanese cultivation world. Suddenly, the top of the mountain in the Japanese cultivation world was in an uproar. There were cheers of survival everywhere, and the sound of help was like a tsunami. At this time, on the other side of the mountain, the cultivators of all sects in China were also in disbelief. 1. The mystical silver fox was sealed just like that? Is it over? Are we still alive? Some of the cultivators who had survived the disaster looked around and saw that some of their fellow disciples and friends of the Tao, who were usually good friends, had fallen asleep in this foreign country. For a moment, they couldn't help but feel sad and happy, which was indescribable. At this time, many people in the Japanese cultivation world who were ecstatic were shocked by the fierceness of this battle. The Japanese cultivator who had shouted before shouted, Wisdom King, please destroy this powerful magical weapon that seals the mystical silver fox with the secret of heaven together, so as to avoid future troubles. When Li Jiandong heard this, he was a little angry in his heart. Destroy the powerful magical weapon together? It's easy to say. It's not your powerful magical weapon. This is the powerful magical weapon of the Linggong sect. Moreover, if the powerful magical weapon is destroyed, what about Xueqi? Damn it, it's easy to talk. A bunch of bastards. Li Jiandong was unhappy. He lowered his voice and shouted, Do I need you to interfere in my affairs? These words were a little unreasonable, but at this time, Li Jiandong had subdued the mystical silver fox. The cultivators of all sects in Japan felt that there was nothing wrong with his words. They couldn't help but lower their heads and look like yes-men. The cultivator who had shouted before also looked terrified. He bent down and faced Li Jiandong, retreating into the crowd in fear and trepidation. Although they had been scolded by Li Jiandong, the cultivators of all sects in Japan could not hide their joy. Even the people of the Chinese cultivation sects were happy, but at this time, they seemed to have forgotten the other two initiators. At this time, at the foot of the Xueqi mountain range, Lu Yi was looking up at the sky in despair. He could hardly believe his eyes. He had worked hard for more than 10 years, but it had turned into a bubble. Lu Yi stood motionless on the ground as if he had been petrified. A faint sigh came from beside him. Man proposes, God disposes. Leader Lu, you've miscalculated. Lu Yi didn't turn his head. He slowly moved his mouth and said in a dry voice, If I can save the mystical silver fox once, I can save it a second time. Master Wan, you won't give up like this, will you? Wan Jinyuan stood beside him, smiled slightly, and said, What are you talking about? I still want to make a comeback. However, before that, I want to borrow something from Leader Lu. Lu Yi asked in a low voice, What? As soon as he finished speaking, he heard Wang Jinyuan's gloomy voice say, Let me borrow your head. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.